the gunship denied the first 2 requests. And they were like, dude, you guys have to figure out how to move back. Like, you're so danger close, we're going to kill you. Yeah. And my team lead called back and was like, bro, like, there's no place to go. There's nothing. Like, it's nothing but empty Iraqi desert. Like, we got dudes that are bleeding out and we're running out of ammo. The gunfight lasted about 40 minutes, I guess.
You come to, is the gunfight still taking place over top of you when you wake up? Is it still, you're just like, holy fucking shit?
Yeah. The first volley of rounds took out the machine gunner that was, at least injured him. I could hear, he stopped firing and I could hear him yelling. Got up and walked to the helicopter. I told him, kind of funny shit you think about, but I was like, dude, grab my arm and grab my helmet. I remember walking to the helo and like I was hunched over because I was bleeding so badly, and I just to this day I can still kind of see this visual of all this blood just pouring out of my face. I started to let go, and I just remember like this darkness and just drifting off. But right about that moment, I felt this tug on my left side, and I kind of look up, and this nurse is standing there and yells out, "He's still got a bomb on him."
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He spent 21 years on active duty, 18 of which as a U.S. Navy SEAL. He conducted 6 deployments, that's 6 deployments, and then was awarded a Bronze Star with V, as well as a Purple Heart, and also earned a Ranger tab, which you best believe we're going to get into that shit. He is the CEO of Soft Spoken and Eagle Rise Speakers Network. He makes Tony Robbins look half asleep, and he's so bionic they call him the $6 billion man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Jason Redman.
Mike, what's up, brother? Thanks for having me, man.
Shit, thanks for coming. So what brings you to Dallas, and to what do we owe the pleasure of you being able to come on?
Yeah, man, I was down here speaking for an event, obviously one of the big things that I do. Not a whole lot of live events going on right now, so it's kind of cool to be able to come down here and actually do that. Did a workshop with a group here, and actually it was really cool because my son got to come with me. He ended up DJing the same event. That's a first for us that we worked an event together, yeah.
I'd like to take a quick second to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Origin Labs and Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is a great product. He's got a ton of products actually within the Jocko Fuel line. The guests and I enjoy them on the show. And outside, I take a lot of the supplements. I've got some of the Origin Lab jeans, boots, gis, and it's just all around American industry. They do a fantastic job really re-revolutionizing American industry from start to finish. It's all American made, all American sourced. Everything start to finish is made right there in-house, and they really do a phenomenal job creating the products and fulfilling the whole ball of wax. They've been a huge supporter of the Mic Drop podcast for a while now, and I really can't thank Jocko Fuel and Origin Labs enough for the job that they do for us. And so thank you to you guys. I'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Resilience Premium CBD. Resilience is excited to offer all Mic Drop listeners a 20% off discount on all products for 2 weeks from when this podcast is live using the discount code MICDROP at checkout. That's 2 words, MICDROP at checkout. I'd also like to say that Resilience is a great company that works in conjunction with Trico CBD, and all military veterans and first responders receive 35% off. Yes, that's 35% off for all military veterans and first responders, and that's through the Military and First Responders Program. You just have to sign up at resilientcbd.com/military first responders discount. In terms of about Resilience, generally speaking, it's a premium CBD that I use. Again, it works in conjunction with the Tricos brand for the everyday athlete. That's www.resilientcbd.com. And Resilience was really born with the founders who are military veterans as well, personally experienced the effects and impact that CBD had on their own mental and physical obstacles. Their focus was sharper, mental stress was calmed, fitness stamina increased, and their bodies felt less pain, inflammation after super intense workouts. A lot of times, most people and people are able to either wean off entirely or significantly reduce pain management therapy. This is a shared vision among the founders that this incredible supplement had not only changed their lives, but had the power to provide unbelievable benefits to family, friends, athletes, fellow veterans, and ultimately the entire fitness community. So big shout out to Resilience for their product as well as the Trico stuff. We sure appreciate their support. So your son spins on the ones and twos, or what?
He does.
He's heavy into that shit.
He is, and he's really good. I mean,
Yeah, cool.
He's crushing it. He's won quite a few contests, and
Really?
Virginia Beach area. And
how does one judge a DJ contest? Is it like surfing, where it's kind of subjective, like it's basically an opinion, or is there like a metric used to?
No, it's totally opinion driven. So you have other influencer personalities, DJs, at the higher end of the spectrum that come from different clubs in the different areas.
Oh, okay.
And basically they're the judges.
Yeah.
Although interesting, he won this really big, he came in second in this really big contest. And it was a good lesson for him. And it was a lesson in life for a lot of people. He learned a lesson in strategy because he came out of the gates with almost everything he had in the beginning. Came out super strong and crushed everybody. But because there were additional heats that had to go on, by the time he got to the finals, he had pretty much showed off all his skills.
Yeah.
And the guy that won slow rolled. He saved all his best stuff for the end.
Did you put your arm around him and have the old bull and the young bull?
I did.
Going to run down and fuck one of the cows. He's like, no, we're going to walk down and fuck them all.
Yeah, exactly. I said, don't go too big, too fast. Yeah. You got.
I had no idea that there was that much to DJing, like that there's heats and fucking competitions and shit. I didn't realize that. My brother's a fucking DJ too. That shows you what a shitty sibling I am. I don't think he's ever done competitions, or at least if he has, he hasn't mentioned them. Joe, you get back to me on that. God damn it. What's your best childhood memory?
That's a great question. Man, I think my best childhood memory was my parents were divorced, and like many kind of a crazy separated family, and we didn't have a lot of money, but my mom by happenstance ended up in the Virgin Islands. And so every summer and even for a period of time I lived with her. And one summer when I was 13, she chartered a sailboat, and my best friend got to go with me, and my oldest sister and my mom. And we sailed through the British Virgin Islands for a week.
No shit.
Yeah, and this captain taught me and my buddy how to sail. He was like, you guys are going to sail, and taught us how to sail. And we just island hopped every day, man. We went from island to island and sleeping on the deck at night and sailing in the day and literally cooking.
Yeah, that's cool as fuck.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the captain taught you how to wrestle down in the fucking...
He did, and I'm a little uncomfortable about that. I don't want to talk about that. He kept inviting me into the shower. I got my introduction to the sailor life.
He painted a French mustache on my lower back. I still don't understand why. Yeah.
I earned my sea legs.
Yeah, fucking A, you did. And crisscrossed him around his fucking neck, right?
Yeah.
What is the funniest memory you have of any of your own children?
There's a couple. I would definitely say my son, after I got wounded, we were sitting there and he was doing homework. He was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 at this point. Probably 9, because I think he was 8 when I got wounded. And I was helping him with some homework, and I'm still all bagged up, man. I got hardware, and I think I might have even still been traked at that point. And he's sitting there doing his homework, and he's like thinking, and I'm thinking he's thinking about the problem or something. I'm like, "What's up, dude? You hitting a problem where you need some help?" And he goes, "Dad," he's like, he said, "if you'd been blown up and walked away from that," He's like, you'd be a legend. And I was like, wow, man. I'm like, Dad got all shot up.
Yeah.
And, I did walk away from that.
Some
And,
just chopped fucking liver, I
yeah,
guess.
there's a lot of people that think that's pretty impressive. I mean, I'm still here. And he goes, yeah, but if it'd been a bomb. So, I got demoted in my son's eyes because it wasn't a bomb. And then the other funny one is my daughter, when we got to meet President Bush, we got to go in and he was awesome, man. He was so gracious and just spent like 35 minutes with me and my family. And they gave the kids these little White House goodie bags. And they had, like little postcards about government and the White House and their dogs and the White House M&Ms and other stuff like that. Well, there was supposed to be a kaleidoscope in the bag. My son had one, my youngest daughter had one, and my middle daughter, who is by far my most like...
She called him out, didn't it?
Dude, well, but not at first. What she did, I mean, crazy, like she must have realized it immediately, like, I don't have a kaleidoscope. So she didn't say a word. She just kind of sat there quietly. And then right about the time when we were like wrapping up and we're like, hey, we got to go, we thank Mr. President. And she marched right up, like literally marched up and almost stood on top of his shoes and looks up at him and holds the bag up and goes, Mr. President, I don't have a kaleidoscope in my bag. She was 5. And dude, we were like mortified, like, oh my God. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, this kid's smart. Like, who do I go to in this room? Like the aide, like this, like that, mom or dad? No, I'm going to the most powerful man in the free world.
Man. Yeah. It's funny. Kids are fucking wizards with inventory that way. Like if it's a good deal, like, I mean, honestly, like, fuck the labor laws. You ought to hire kids to do inventory because those little bastards don't fucking miss a thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Man, you can't get anything past them. Yeah. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I am not a fan personally.
I mean, do you have like heartburn with it? Where I mean,
no. I would eat
want
it.
To fight.
No. I'm not like that. I will eat if it's on there, but it's not my jam. I do not order a pizza with pineapple on it.
All right. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Any ski mountain on the western side of the Rockies and West.
No shit.
So,
any of them.
I mean, Colorado. I love any of the mountains in Montana. I love obviously Utah. I mean, I love skiing. It's probably my number one favorite hobby. So anytime we can go, we do East Coast skiing.
It's not the same.
But it's not the same. It's good, but it's not as good as West Coast skiing.
Yeah. Are you do you snowboard at all, or is that like fucking?
I did. So I snowboarded. So I started out skiing, then I switched snowboarding. But after I got wounded, without being able to bend this arm, if anybody out there snowboards and you've hit a really fast downhill edge and it whipsaws you into the ground, I can't stop. I can't absorb that shock. Yeah. Like I would just break this arm. So it kind of made me decide I was going to go back to skiing, and I've stuck to that.
And with the skiing, like the poles, you can minimize or buffer the fucking fall.
Yeah, because skiing, you tend to fall. Even if you pitch forward, it's typically at an angle. It's pretty rare that you with your skis out front that you literally pitch and then would come down. Yeah. Typically you kind of go to at an angle.
Well, it shows you how fuck all little I know about skiing and snowboarding. I mean, I've snowboarded once and it was awesome. I loved it. But we were in where were we? Tahoe at Heavenly.
Yeah, it's nice.
Great
Heavenly's great. Vail's my favorite. Yeah. The back bowls of Vail are, and if anybody out there, if you're a skier and you've never been to Vail, go to Vail. Most people stay on the front of the mountain. Dude, you can spend, my daughter and I, one day we went, just the two of us, and went on a trip. We covered 46 miles in a day in the back bowls of Vail.
46 fucking miles. God damn. That's and that's not telemark, like that's downhill.
It was yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. It just back and forth across the mountain, up the lifts. So.
God damn. What does your morning routine look like? Barring sans travel, like just normal at home, what does that typical morning look like?
So up at 4, I get up and I eat.
Jesus, you're a Jocko guy.
Well, not intentionally. I will tell you that I'm not doing it to compete with Jocko or anything like that. It just kind of happened, and a lot of it has to do with the fitness goals that I had. It just seems like I keep getting up earlier and earlier. It used to be, I got up around 6 was the average, and then it became 5, and now it's become 4 because the coach I'm working with, the only time he had to fit me in was 5 a.m.
Oh, I got you.
So up at 4, I eat. Usually I kind of look at my day, start looking at that, and then I head to the gym, do that 5 a.m. workout. I come back. I usually like to do some reading, do some organizing for the day, and then I usually try and launch right into what is my the one thing, that big thing that I need to get done for the day. Right now, it's a new program I'm working on, but it could be, whether it's a book you're writing or maybe it's a new presentation you're working on.
Yeah. Do you typically go to bed super early, getting up that early, or?
I am. I mean, typically I try to be in bed by 9:30, 10. I mean, my goal is to get at least 6 hours of sleep. I know myself that if I start getting consistently less than, I can function on 5 fine, and I do pretty good, but 6 is really ideal, and I'd love to get 7.
Yeah.
So, which is interesting because we've always been night owls. So my wife and I.
So you're throwing a real wrench in her.
Oh, she's like, you're screwing us up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's awesome to hear about it. I'm sure she's fucking pissed and giving you a hard time.
Oh, she is. Yeah.
Before we get into kind of some of your backstory, I want to take a quick second to introduce my producer, Zach, who he's going to be chiming in. Hi, Zach.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, he's been doing a phenomenal job for about 10 episodes now and has really kicked it up to the next level. Can't thank him enough. And there may be times where he chimes in or we ask him something. So just for those of you listening, that's who he is and what he does. Also, in that same vein, he produces another show with a good friend of mine where I sit in on it called Uninfluenced. It's on iTunes and YouTube as well. It's kind of a combination of just shooting the shit and talking a lot about cars and motorcycles and shit like that. I have gotten into those types of pastime activities over the last couple of years, and a good friend of mine that he and I kind of go back and forth car and bike wise wanted to have kind of a platform to just shoot the shit and talk about what we're up to that way, as well as getting into politics and just telling funny stories and whatever. So for those of you that are constantly asking when the next episode is, in the meantime, you can supplement with Uninfluenced, and again, it's on YouTube and iTunes and all the other assholes out there that play our stuff.
Yeah, new episodes every Wednesday.
There you go.
Yes.
You heard it from the source. All right. In terms of your childhood, I'd like to talk a little bit about just where you're from and kind of what growing up was like, other than the Virgin Islands trip.
Right. The captain. Yeah. My captain.
The one-eyed captain.
Yeah. I had a, uneventful, for the most part, childhood. I mean, I was not, beat, abused. I mean, my parents were divorced. So at a pretty young age, and, it was kind of one of the things I definitely probably learned from a young age, and something my wife and I both share. She came from a dysfunctional family, as so did I. Both parents divorced both sides, and both of us had to bounce back and forth between those parents. And, sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? Pressure, you would get the bullshit from your parents, they would draw negative comments about each other and all that. So basically, at least when I got older, both of us were like, hey, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
But other than that, we didn't have a whole lot of money. We definitely, bouncing back and forth. I mean, I was fortunate enough to live in the Virgin Islands, but it was my mom's job that brought her there. We didn't have a whole lot. We did okay. And then, I would bounce back and forth to my dad, and we lived, on an old tobacco farm in southern North Carolina. So, for the most part, I just kind of learned a good work ethic and patriotism. I mean, on that farm, I learned how to weed and hoe a garden and clear brush and all these other things that I think did teach me, some good things about, breaking a sweat and working. But other than that was probably it. I mean, I did learn I learned a lot about patriotism. My family was military, not while I was young, but my dad, before I came along, was Army, and I just stories about my grandfathers on both sides fought in World War II. My great uncle was killed in World War II.
Do you know the circumstances?
Yeah, he was shot down in the Pacific. He was
sure.
he was a pilot flying a single engine and got shot down in that campaign over there. And then my dad's dad actually was a B-24 pilot and miraculously flew all his missions. Even got shot down and crash landed the aircraft in Yugoslavia. Saved everybody. They landed in a snowfield. It was in the winter. And I verified this because there is an article, we have a newspaper article where they highlighted him in the town news over what happened.
Wow.
So,
man, that's a trip.
Yeah.
In terms of the bouncing back and forth between the southern part of North Carolina and Virgin Islands, what was the split like ballpark?
Oh, the amount of time?
Yeah.
Usually I would go to my mom's in the summer, and it was kind of weird. My dad actually got custody of us when they divorced. So oftentimes when my mom was in the Virgin Islands, we'd be in the summer, I'd go with her. There's a period of time I went and lived with her for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, right before Hurricane Hugo in the 90s. I think it was 90 or 89 that Hugo hit the Virgin Islands and destroyed our house. There was nothing left of our house other than literally the foundation. And my mom sent me off the island before Hugo came. My mom was injured when Hugo happened, and to this day, we don't know what happened. They found her. The National Guard found her wandering around with a head injury.
God damn.
And they medevaced her off the island to Miami, and they landed and took her to the hospital, and they checked her out, and the doctor was like, "It's a fucking miracle you survived that flight. Like she had a massive hematoma in her brain." And he was like, "Yeah, it should have killed you at altitude."
Holy fuck. Any lasting effects?
No, I mean, she's doing good now. I worry because Alzheimer's runs in our family, and with a head injury, that could be, already an issue. But my mom's doing good. She's 75 now, living in Colorado. So
that's awesome. Does she smoke weed living in Colorado?
All the time.
No shit.
I can't stop. No, I'm kidding.
You had me go. I was like, no shit. Fucking go, mom.
At least not that I'm aware of. I mean,
no, she does the gummies. It's not so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you have siblings growing up?
I did. I got 3. So I've got a younger brother and then 2 older sisters. So
I'm always curious what role or impact did they have on you growing up? Were you close with them? Did you fight with them? Did they influence you at all? Or
so we're really spread out, and in some way, half siblings is kind of the way it all. So when my dad divorced, he remarried. So my younger brother is 7 years younger. So not too much of an impact. I mean, we're not as close. My I call her my little sister because she's little, but we're Irish twins. I think we're 11 months apart, and I'm really close to her. We just, everything we went through, as we grew up, we were kind of together. And then my oldest sister, she's 10 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, fucking right on. Did you play any sports growing up?
I did. I played, I wrestled and played football, although I was a late bloomer. I did not start playing sports. I was literally the 95-pound weakling.
Yeah.
I'm not that big a guy. Anybody that's listening, I'm about, 5'8", 170. And, literally at 16, I was still probably only 5 foot tall, 95 pounds.
Yeah.
And I always loved football. I grew up watching football, and my dad was like, "No, you're not going to play football. You'll get hurt." And I don't know, finally one day when I was about, 15, 16, I had already decided I wanted to be a SEAL. And I was like, man, I need to do stuff that's hard. So I told my dad, I'm going to play football. And I hadn't played at all, dude. And, here I was this, 100-pound kid out on the football field, just getting the shit knocked out of me. But I never stopped. I mean, I kept doing it. And then from there, I started wrestling. And I wrestled 119 pounds, 112 and then 119. Well, our 119 pounder was the state champion for North Carolina. Oh, wow. And he would just wipe the floor with me every practice. But it was good. It taught me a good mindset, and taught me how to get my ass kicked, which happened more times in my life later.
I mean, resiliency, I think, is arguably one of, if not the consummate fucking principle and character trait. I think that's going to set people up for success. So. I mean, I know I've talked about it at length a number of times on the show with delivering dogs to a lot of high net worth folks, and kind of seeing the patterns that exist between them, the parallels that that tend to connect the clients. That's kind of the one thing that all of them have, is just the same type of attitude that a lot of soft guys have, of just, I don't give a fuck what happens. I'm just going to I'll put my head down and keep driving, and I'll figure it out, and that, I mean, I can't say enough or overemphasize that, just how important that is, especially in trying to develop young kids and what have you. But were there any impactful moments that you haven't mentioned growing up that kind of good or bad shaped who you are, or why you decided to serve, or anything like that?
No, I mean, I can't, kind of interesting. Like I said, I'm probably an unlikely candidate to go off and become a SEAL. I think more than anything, I probably just had a chip on my shoulder. And I had that inner drive. Like, if you told me I couldn't do something, it just kind of pissed me off and made me say, well, I want to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And that probably drove me more than anything else to do it. And yeah, I mean, alignment with your thought process. Yeah, I think more than any trait, I mean, I'm not the smartest. As a matter of fact, I sometimes feel like I am a fucking slow learner. Like, people will tell me to do something, and like I'll hear it, but I can't make it work in my life. So I need to, even though they told me don't go that way because you're going to get the shit kicked out of you, yeah. I'll go that way probably at least 2 times, get the shit kicked out of me both times, and then finally be like, oh, yeah, right, that's what they were saying. So, and it's just that ability to keep grinding forward that is, for me, that's enabled me to, find success.
Yeah, no, I love it. In terms of motivation to serve, would you say that was primarily driven from both grandparents or grandfathers rather?
Yeah, and my dad. I mean, my dad was Army. I mean, I just grew up always from a young age. I just wanted to. I was just attracted to service industries. So I was really interested when I was young in being a firefighter, and then learning more about my grandparents in the military. I just kind of settled on that from a young age. G.I. Joe was big when, we were younger. So, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, I was like, dude, that's what I want.
Yeah, that's fucking great. I've talked about this too. Like, there's such a lack of that nowadays, for young boys and young men to look up to in terms of pop culture influences as it relates to the MacGyvers, the Knight Riders, the fucking Commandos, the Rambos. Like, there just isn't any of that anymore.
Well, there's this attack on masculinity and this attack on this, what it is to be a man. Like, there's nothing wrong to be tough and to be a warrior and to, but nowadays there's almost this vilification of like hard dudes and like stuff like that. The stuff that we grew up on, this bullshit idea that, kids should never play with, toy guns or anything. Dude, I was running around the woods with toy guns. I mean, my whole life growing up.
Yeah. Zach, I'm curious, you're quite a bit younger. What did you watch growing up? If you say
Power Rangers.
That's better than Powder Puff Girls. I mean, I didn't know where we were going with that.
It's better than fucking Hello Kitty or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but did you find, not that we're directing the interview to you, but did you find that there were not a lot of options that way? Did you ever find yourself thinking, I wish there were more shit like that, or did it not even register because there just wasn't?
It's a good question, because you guys got about 15 years on me, I'd imagine. And like, I didn't have anything cool like He-Man in the 80s, or G.I. Joe. It was all, I don't want to say censored, but it was soft edges, right? Yeah, it was all rounded off. And that was kind of a shame. So
yeah, I'm going to say the answer is yes, you wish you would have had some fucking cool guy stuff.
Yeah, big time.
Hey, man.
Teletubbies with a machine gun.
Yeah, fucking A. All right. So when you graduated high school, did you mentioned being a firefighter? Can you walk us through kind of from graduation until you went into the Navy?
No. The firefighter thing was when I was young. Oh, okay. I wanted to do that. I did not ever. I didn't ever do that. It was just something I wanted to do. So yeah, my path was, about the age of 15, I decided I wanted to become a SEAL and just set my sights on that. Kind of interesting. Probably at 16, I walked into the recruiting office the first time, 5'1", like 105 pounds, and was like, I want to be a SEAL.
Yeah. Like,
And
well,
there
we
was
got
this-
a good admin job for you.
Yeah. There was this old crusty. I mean, he was like the proverbial like Popeye boatswain's mate, like covered in tattoos, crusty as fuck, and was just like, get the fuck out of here, and just chased me out of the office.
That's fucking great.
And I came back, several weeks later, and was like, hey man, I want to be a SEAL, and chased me out of the office again, and started becoming a pretty big prick to me.
Yeah.
And so finally I was like, well, screw it. I'll go join the Army, because the Army kind of watched this happen. It was like, hey, man, you can be a Green Beret or a Ranger. So true story, I actually went down the path to be in the Army. And when I went to MEPS, I failed the airborne physical because I had my eardrum reconstructed when I was a kid. And they said, well, you can't equalize. Well, I knew I could because I'd grown up in the Virgin Islands, diving and doing all this. So so I told the Army, well, unless I can get an airborne slot, like, I'm not joining the Army.
Yeah.
So that pissed a recruiter off. But kind of fate came along, and during this period, old crusty boatswain's mate left. This new guy came in, and I was walking in one day trying to figure out what to do. And I told him what happened, and he was like, well, hey, man, if you get a doctor's waiver that says you can equalize, he's like, you can come in the SEAL teams. I was like, well, that's all I wanted to do. And he's like, well, let me help you. And
there is no better example of the fucking classic Navy than that right there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, dude, just get a waiver, man. We'll take you.
Exactly.
Fucking my quota's not met this month, so I'll tell you whatever the fuck you need to hear.
But he was a good dude. He helped me, man. He really helped me get where I'm going. And if you're out there, I've said this on so many podcasts, Henry Horn was his name. I still haven't met him, or I have not seen him again since I enlisted.
Yeah.
But I'd love to thank you in person, brother, because I wouldn't be a SEAL today if it wasn't for you.
That's a trip. Henry Horn. Sounds like a porn star a little bit.
He was a stocky black guy, good looking guy. He might have been.
I mean, with a name like that, I don't know how you couldn't. All right. So you joined the Navy. I'm assuming you had, at that point, it was the dive fair program or whatever. Did you have a BUDS contract, or were you? Yeah,
no, they didn't. I don't think the dive fair program existed then yet. So I enlisted. I joined in the delayed entry program in '92. So I actually joined. Crazy. September 11, '92 is the day I signed my paperwork. So delayed entry is still in high school. So I basically did delayed entry, where you're going to the office and all this stuff, getting ready to go. And then as soon as I graduated, I headed to boot camp. And basically what they said is, when you get to boot camp, at some point, some SEAL's going to come out and he's going to say, does anybody want to try out for the SEAL program? And then, raise your hand, tell them you want to do it, and they'll let you try out. And that's pretty much how it worked. So I didn't go in with any kind of guarantee or pipeline, aside from having, the SEAL rate I needed.
And what was that?
I was an IS.
Oh, no shit.
Intel, yeah.
So did I. Fucking A.
Oh, no shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep.
So what year did you go through?
96.
Okay. So.
But that's a fucking trip. That was my first exposure to that command, or that base where the command is at,
Yep.
which was a hell of an inspiration, going through A school, getting ready to go to BUDS. But
did you have anybody from the command that came over and worked with you guys?
No. I remember seeing some guys that would come to the pool and do like the O course thing and would swim, and you could tell they were fucking team guys. They were working out in the gym or whatever. And even there was a handful of times where we saw guys in their blues or in a uniform with a trident on it that were clearly from there, but that was it. We had really no interaction with them whatsoever. Did you have somebody that?
Yeah, we had a guy that would come over because the one of the senior chiefs that worked there at the Intel school, her husband was at the command. So he would come over and work out with the guys that wanted to go to BUDS. Yeah, he'd kick our ass.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So.
All right, so you go through Intelligence Specialist A school, and then you end up at BUDS. Did you make it through with the class you started with and all that? Or?
I didn't, man. I'm one of the 75% majority that don't make it through the first shot. So I went through Hell Week with class 200. So started in January '95 all the way through Hell Week in March, and then I started developing pretty bad tendonitis in my feet. And just tried to push through, and got, I don't know, about a week and a half into dive phase. We hadn't made it to pool week yet, and ended up getting rolled. So got rolled, and then almost before I'm supposed to be done, I go to I go to Rosarito, Mexico to party and get totally shithoused and walk out of the bar trying to clear my head. And there are these young kids that are doing flips off the boardwalk, which is low tide, probably about 6 feet from the boardwalk to the sand below. And in my drunken state, I'm like, I can do that. So I try to launch this flip off the boardwalk, totally don't land it, land sideways and break my wrist. I break both bones in my wrist in Mexico. And had to go back to Bud's and made up this story because I knew that I'd get kicked out if I told him I was drinking and broke my arm. So I made up this story that I was down in Mexico and I was, rock climbing and I fell off this rock, and in typical team guy instructor fashion, they're like, sure. Yeah. But they let it.
Even then you could go down to Mexico then though, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, we were still allowed.
You weren't allowed to.
Yeah, no, we were cleared hot. So, but they knew it, man. They knew it. And they allowed me to stay, but the slack was pretty slim. Yeah. So I got the cast off and they had me class back up I think it was 2.5 weeks after I got the cast off that I classed back up.
And did you make it through with that?
I did. Yeah. But it was painful. I failed almost every swim after that. I mean, it was a gut check.
Yeah. Fuck, man. So was that 201 or 203?
202. When I broke my arm, it caused me to double roll.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
All right, so you graduate 202, and then where do you go from there, team-wise?
I went to Team 4, East Coast, and I had worked at Team 4 after I graduated or after I finished A school. For whatever reason, Buds was backed up. So they sent me over to Team 4. They sent me to Group 2, and then Group 2 sent me over to Team 4. So it was kind of cool. I got to meet some people, and I worked in the ORE, stands for Operational Readiness Exercise. It was basically the certification for, platoons getting ready to go out the door for deployment. So I was just a nug working in there, but it was cool to be able to see that. And then went to Buds and then ended up coming back to Team 4.
When you came back, were there guys that recognized you and you're like, you motherfucker, you made it?
Yep.
No shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was a guy that nobody thought. They thought, oh yeah, the skinny little runt, he ain't gonna make it.
That's a fucking trip. So what was your experience like in terms of checking in and being a new guy and whatever? I always like to hear stories of whether it's hazing or just kind of the welcome to the canoe club type of feel that existed back in those days. The pre 9/11 when it was still they may, I mean, not that they don't earn it now, but back then it was a different level.
Checking into the command.
Yeah.
The first time. Yeah, no, it was, I remember coming back thinking, dude, I did it. I graduated Buds and, I'm a badass. And yeah, you check in and no, it was still old school back then. And, yeah, I remember I think it was the first day. They're like, hey man, go get wet. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. I thought
and they're like, I didn't stutter. Go get wet. And went and got wet and then come back and they're like, now go mop the platoon hut down there. And I'll admit, I was definitely cocky. I mean, I write a lot about that when I was younger. It got me in trouble a lot. And so there were several guys at that command who were pretty hard pipe hitters who definitely took a disliking and gave me some extra attention. Yeah. So
what was your pipeline in terms of from when you checked in until you were in a platoon and doing a workup?
It wasn't, so I got to the command probably in February. And back then, STT, I don't know if it was the same on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, it was run out of the main group.
Yeah, same on the West Coast. That's SEAL tactical training, which is, and I know we've talked about this before, but just for those of you who haven't heard it, it's kind of the on-the-job training, if you will, to a certain extent. It's like an advanced training bridge between graduating SEAL training and jumping into a platoon, so that when you get into a platoon, you're a little more ready to hit the ground running. But yeah, it was done by there was just one main group that did it instead of each SEAL team having its own class that way, which is how it used to be before they did that. But
I tell people, Buds is like high school. STT or SQT is kind of like college before you go hit the job. But yeah, we were totally backed up for whatever reason. Team 4, I think, really had a had lost a lot of guys for whatever reason. They had gotten out, transferred, whatever. So almost our entire, a large portion of our buds class came to Team 4.
Yeah.
So there were so many of us. It was really backlogged for STT. So our team said, hey, we're just going to create our own STT. So we actually, there was like 16 of us that went through STT together. And that happened, I don't know, in the summer. So probably 4 or 5 months, you did a lot of nug,
sweep
nug
the beach,
work.
fucking paint the parking lot lines.
Yep, absolutely. Paint the cannons in the rain. I did that a couple of times. And then, but then went off to STT and then came back. And it was about, by the time we finally got our Trident, because there was a 6-month probationary period, you had the Trident boards you had to go through. So it was almost a year and a half from the time I got to the team to the time I actually got my Trident.
Yeah. Wow. I think for me, it was just shy. It was a little less than a year, but it's a long fucking time. Your first platoon, if you could just kind of walk through your platoon life, from early on until kind of more recent years.
Yeah, man, it was good. I mean, we had, a lot of the guys that I'd gone through buds with were in my platoon. So, I mean, we had we were pretty new guy heavy, to be honest, but it was good. And, back then we were area of the world specific. So we were Central and South America. We were jungle warfare focused. And, some guys love the cold. Me, I'm a heat guy. I mean, I don't mind the cold, but I like, the jungle, hot weather, it's my jam. It doesn't faze me. And I really enjoyed learning all about the jungle and jungle warfare and learning to survive and live in the jungle. And we got to do some cool things. I mean, South America is both a cool place to be. And it was kind of my first introduction to like, really third world countries. Like, holy shit, there's some people here that like have nothing. Yeah. And it also was kind of my first introduction that, hey man, there's some really dangerous places in the world. I mean, we started going to Colombia and you were seeing, they had the drug war going on and the FARC controlled a lot of Colombia. And a lot of the, narco traffickers were working hand in hand with the FARC. So that was a lot of stuff that we were doing. And that was kind of my first introduction to, hey man, this job's for real, bro. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. I mean, we did one of the first deployments. I volunteered to go do a counter drug type mission and went into central southern Colombia and pretty FARC controlled territory. And one night we were getting information that this very large 400-man FARC element. It was like a Colombian special forces camp, and that this 400-man element was moving towards the camp. So we were getting word about this, and like, hey, you need to be ready. And like we had like a no shit E&E plan, and they were within a day or two of getting to the camp. And I remember one night, like we were sleeping in our camis, everything in your boots and like ready to go. And all of a sudden one night, like the base just exploded, gunfire in all directions, 40 Mike into the tree lines and just going to town on the 60s. And I'm like, holy shit, people are running in all directions. And the senior chief I was working for is like, hey, prep those thermites, we're going to destroy the radios, get ready if we have to go on E&E. And, I mean, as a brand new guy, I mean, it was like pretty crazy, but turned out that that element, for whatever reason, it might've been because of the response of the base. I mean, they went, dude, you remember that scene in Predator where they just go to town and the like this? Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what the jungle looked like around this base. So I don't know if that massive FARC element was like, maybe we don't want to screw with them, but they went the other way. And, nothing much else happened after that.
Sounds like they kicked over the fucking hornet's nest. Huh?
Yeah.
All right. So you did that deployment. You come back. How many deployments did you do at Team 4 while you were there?
3, 4.
4.
So, yeah.
So in the subsequent platoons, were there any other experiences like that where big gunfight like that, or was it? No,
that was the only one that was my only like real world type thing that occurred. It was on that same trip that was the first time I saw somebody shot. And it also kind of my first introduction to
hookers.
Yeah, they
Well,
were
those
there.
too.
They were there in Colombia too. But
Thick ass Colombian hookers.
no to corruption, if you will, and the way of the way of third world countries. Because what happened is, we were in our platoon hut one day, or in our little Quonset hut there on that base, and all of a sudden the Colombians come running in, and they're like, "Hey, we need your help. We need your medic." And we're like, "Okay, let's go." And we go, and there's a dude shot like in the head. And we're like, what the hell happened? And this officer was standing there, and he's like, oh, yeah, I think somebody might have shot from the field or something. And there was no exit wound. So it was obviously and he had a sidearm.
Yeah.
So we honestly think this dude just shot this guy.
Yeah.
And we did CPR. We actually trached him. But yeah, he didn't survive. But so it was kind of my first time seeing somebody shot, and it's kind of an interesting thing. And also to see like, hey, dude, we don't have all the rules that we have here. The Colombians, they don't fuck around.
Yeah, a little more nonchalant about fixing problems.
Yeah.
All right, so you do four platoons at Team 4. Did you know Dave Scott when he was there? Does that ring a bell?
I knew Andy Scott. Dave Scott, no.
He was at Team 4 around that same time, maybe just before then, but I think probably around the same time. Anyway,
okay.
He was a good friend of mine that died base jumping in Guam back in 2002, like October of 2002.
No, I don't remember that. So,
but yeah, he spent a number of years at Team 4. But anyway, so after Team 4, walk us through kind of the post Team 4 and then the next chapter.
Yeah, man, I did. So after several deployments, got selected to go to training. That was kind of the pipeline, and went to training and was teaching communications and reconnaissance, marksmanship. And it was about that time I was kind of at the decision point of my career. I was thinking about screening, and I had several people saying, well, have you thought about putting in a commissioning package? So I nothing was happening. We were pre 9/11, there was a lot of training, but really not much real world operation. It was about that time I also met my wife. So I was kind of like, where do I go? Not a lot going on in the world. Maybe I should go down this path. So I put in a package for Seaman to Admiral, got turned down the first year, and then submitted again the next year and got picked up. So yeah, finished my time in training, got selected for Seaman to Admiral in 2000, wrapped up my time at Team 4 and checked into Old Dominion University, ROTC, in like July of 2001 or June of 2001. And of course, everybody knows what happened September 11th. So
how difficult was that being in college, and especially being in the first year? Knowing that you've got to sit there and go through fucking school for 4 years
well 3, and I tried to drop out of the program. I went back to the team probably, I don't know, only a few days after 9/11, because I knew. I was like, dude, we're going to war. This all an act of war, and obviously you were hearing everything that was coming out of the news. So yeah, I went back to my old command and my CO, and was like, hey, I want out of this program. And he was like, well, prophetically, he goes, Jay, this is a war that's not going to be over tomorrow. He's like, this is a war that's going to go on for decades. Yeah. He's like, I guarantee you will get your shot. He's like, go back to school, finish, learn how to be, a good leader, and come back and be that leader. And he was right. So got off track a little along the way, yeah. But yeah, and it was hard, man. I won't lie. Sitting there in school while I'm watching this happen, and we started losing guys, I think Matt Bourgeois was one of the first guys we lost, and just seeing these guys, Dave Tapper, some of these other guys that started getting killed, and realizing it was real, and realizing that a lot of friends of mine were now starting to deploy and do everything that we trained to do. So I was excited to get back, and I just kind of poured myself into trying to do well in school and get done and learn. And
yeah, what was that like going back? So once you got your commission, then where did you go from there?
So I went So originally I was going to get orders out to the West Coast, and that's typically what they do when a enlisted guy who was an East Coast guy, they typically like to switch, and it makes sense. And I'll tell you what, if any of you out there, I do recommend it. I think you need that disassociation because at the last minute they switched us just because they needed guys on the East Coast, and I got sent to Team 10. Which was great, and I love Team 10. But the problem was I had friends at that team, and this is where my career got a little off track. I think I'd been really fortunate at this point in my life to have been pretty successful in my career. I'd excelled. I'd always been ranked high, getting picked up for the commissioning program. I crushed it at the ROTC unit, ended up, being selected to be the battalion commander for the largest ROTC consortium on the East Coast, graduated #1 out of that program. And I think I came back, I came back as a new officer thinking like I was God's gift to leadership. Like, hey man, I'm going to go to war.
I'm here to lead.
Yeah. I'm going to be Patton, follow me.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things that had changed. I thought, hey man, I'm the experienced, Mustang. I know, I've done multiple deployments. I've been a training instructor. And the problem was, the world had changed drastically. You saw that transition, the pre 9/11 military versus the post 9/11 military. And I try to explain to a lot of people, the military the longer the military is away from sustained combat, you're operating and training based off those last periods of sustained combat. So for us, we were still operating off a lot of the Vietnam era tactics,
Yeah.
And
especially jungle shit.
Yeah. So then we get over to Iraq and Afghanistan, we realize, holy shit, this stuff doesn't work. And so there was this drastic rewrite of all the tactics in those first few years, implementing mobility and all these other things. So I came back as this new officer thinking I was like God's gift and arrogant and started screwing up. I didn't know a lot of the stuff we were doing.
But you pretended to know. I
pretended to know and screwed it up on top of pretending to know.
And then blamed other people. It was great.
Yeah, probably.
It's a trifecta.
So, but I wasn't humble enough to reach out to some of these. I let my ego get in the way. These guys that were younger than me. That in my mind, I'm like, man, I should be better. You're a new guy and I'm not, but instead of humbling myself and being like, hey bro, can you help me? Like I'm struggling here. So I just kind of hung on too tight and was just stepping on my dick right and left. And, as typically happens when you start screwing up, started self-medicating. So then, on top of screwing up as a young leader and making mistakes, then I was starting to get a name as a drunk.
Yeah.
So all those things came together to really kind of damage my credibility, which culminated, and it didn't help. There was an additional dynamic. Me and my senior chief, and he became a senior chief, we did not get along at all. We butted heads. He had kind of an abrasive style of leadership. Don't get me wrong, he was a good leader. He loved the guys. He very hard, though, abrasive style, and he and I just butted heads. I think he wanted an ensign that kept his mouth shut and never said anything. And that definitely was not me, although I wasn't doing a very good job of leading by example. So that created another bad dynamic in all of this. And all of it culminated with a bad call on a mission in Afghanistan that thankfully nobody got killed, nobody was injured, but it definitely damaged my professional reputation. It was kind of the nail in the coffin for all these things. And both that senior chief and multiple other people were like, get rid of that guy. He's dangerous. He's going to get somebody killed.
What was the call, if you can?
So we were doing a kind of a cordon sweep through a valley, and we locked down the valley. The valley ran north to south, and then kind of a T intersection east to west. Pretty deep valley. Like, the ridge lines were probably a good 1,000 feet above the valley floor.
Can you say where it was or no?
Southern Afghanistan, down in the Helmand area. So yeah, we were sweeping through that area. I had an overwatch on the eastern side of the valley with sniper team and a rocket team. And we got into some contacts right at the very beginning of the day, inserted very early in the morning. Those contacts kind of scurried away into the caves and everything else down there. And then it was quiet the majority of the day. Towards the end of the day, they got into a gunfight. And because we had already started to fall back for the extract to the south, and I had already sent our snipers back, so it was just me and a machine gunner that were kind of waiting. But we were the only people that had when this gunfight erupted, and we were the only guys that had comms with the individuals down in the valley. So I'm relaying, and they called for reinforcements, and I was like, they need reinforcements. I got a machine gunner. I was like, I'm going. Which was a bad call. And the reality is, and I tell people this, because a lot of people that don't understand tactics are like, well, hey, man, your guys needed you and you went. But I didn't really think through that call. And really that call was driven by, I want to get in the fight, which is super dangerous if that's your driving reason. So, I took this machine gunner and dropped off into the valley. And this is where I talk about that negative relationship with my senior chief, because he was coordinating, a lot of the assets. And I said, hey, I'm going down to I'm going down to support these guys. And he was like, fuck no. And because we had so much dislike for each other, I let my personal feelings get in the way of professional decision-making. And I was like, screw you, and just went. So what happened, we went down into this valley, and they were getting ready to call in air support. But because we now once we went into the valley, they lost comms with us. So they had no comms, didn't know where we were. So, of course, they couldn't release air support because of that. Finally, we got to the bottom of the valley. And, I mean, for those who don't understand, it's a super bad call. I mean, multiple maneuvering elements, unknown enemy force. I mean, there could have been enemy hidden in fighting positions that we wouldn't have known about that could have popped out and killed us. And now it would have created this much greater dynamic problem. I would have contributed to this machine gunner being killed and myself, or potentially delaying firepower to save these guys in this engagement that, was a good click and a half away from where we were. So anyways, long story short, come back up on the radio. Ground force commanders, breathing fire, get your ass out of the valley. Climbed out of the valley. They finally managed to bring in that air support, and thankfully nobody was injured, nobody was killed because of that. But that was definitely the nail in my coffin. And here's the other reason, the last part of that. Instead of just owning it and saying, man, I made a bad call. Like, I fought against it. Like, they were like, that was a bad call. And I was like, screw you. I did the right thing. I ran to the sound of the guns. I went to support our guys. And, they were trying to be, my XO, which this was a pretty emotional deployment because this was the Red Wings deployment. I was part of that troop. So Eric Christensen had been our troop commander and had been killed. So our XO stepped in to fill Eric's shoes. So already there's a lot of stress and emotions on this deployment. So he's like telling me it's a bad call. I'm pushing back. And finally, I think they were like, screw off. We're sending you back to Bagram.
So if there's two diversions or diverts I want to go down, one is a leadership one, which we'll tackle second. The first one, were you in Afghanistan when Red Wings took place?
No, we were in Germany. We were getting ready to rip.
Okay.
So literally, we were packing out and we were leaving within days when, Red Wings happened.
I gotcha. Going back to the call for a second, one thing and here's my parallel to dog training for those of you that every time I fail to make at least one dog training reference, you call me out in the comments on YouTube. But, one thing that is just incredibly important in dog training is being able to remove your emotion from your decision-making process, especially when it comes to training and using nonverbal communication and body language and things like that. And you're trying to get the dog to do something, and you're using these nonverbal comm skill sets to try to communicate that to the dog, and they don't understand. You get pissed at the dog when ultimately it's your fault. But I'm curious, in fast forward now, you kind of thrive, and one of the principled things that you do professionally is teaching leadership and speaking and things of that nature. Is there a mechanism or a tactic that you learned from that experience and you pass on to folks nowadays that you run seminars with and things like that kind of gives them a tool or tools to remove emotion from decision-making processes as it relates to leadership that you learned from that experience?
Yeah, no, there's plenty. And I think that makes me, a lot of people may want to look at it from the reverse side of the spectrum and say, well, who are you to teach leadership? You screwed up. Well, I think I'm probably better than most people out there because I did screw up and I learned from it. I learned a lot, and it was a really hard road to come back from. So there are a lot of things. I mean, one of the things that I teach is, obviously understanding this process of, the mission, the men, and you place yourself last. So that's how the equation should work. So is it justified for what you're doing in the mission? The mission should take the most priority, obviously, because that's what we're there to do. Then, how does it impact the men? Is it necessary to put them at risk in order to accomplish the mission? I mean, sometimes that's part of our job. And then last, how do you play into that equation? In my opinion, that really shouldn't come into play. And mine was totally backwards in that decision-making process. The second thing I teach 3 rules of leadership now. And rule number 1 is lead yourself. And this was something that I also was really failing at. And it was, how do you build structure, discipline, manage yourself, your emotions, that everything is built around setting the example through your actions. Before you ever get to the leadership where you're interacting and trying to influence other people to do something. So if you're not rock solid in rule number 1, then you're never going to be successful long-term in rule number 2, because too many people, I made this mistake where I literally thought the rank on my collar and, the words coming out of my mouth meant something. I mean, especially in, the deal in special operations, man. Long before you ever open your mouth, people have decided what kind of leader you are.
Yeah.
So, and then rule number, and so that's rule number 2 is how you lead others. How do you influence them? And it should all be about, a lot of, what Jocko talks about, extreme ownership, your ability to lead others. If things are not going well, most people in leadership immediately look for something else to blame. Mm-hmm. It's the person, it's this, it's that, instead of coming back to themselves and saying, well, hey, did I do everything? Did I lead myself well? B, did I provide them all the resources they need, the training, the guidance, the assets, everything they need, and the motivation, whatever it is to get it done. And then the last component is you got to lead always. You can't pick and choose. And that was the other mistake that I was making, that I was, hey, I'm a leader when I'm in this leadership position, but when I'm not, I was drinking in a shit show, which was damaging my credibility as a leader. Yeah. And once you're a leader, I don't care if you're a parent, I don't care if you're in the civilian world, I don't care if you're in the military, law enforcement, dude, once you are established as any of those things, well, as a leader, if you will, it doesn't matter if you're on duty or off duty. You're a parent 100% of the time. So if you're telling your kids to do something, but you're doing something else, they're going to follow your example. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing. Leadership's the same no matter what you do, whether it's in special operations or parenting. So you got to lead always. You got to make the right call all the time. I mean, you might make some mistakes, but
yeah, I think that's really. Brilliantly simple and very well put. I think that's an awesome trifecta that you pulled out of that. All right, so you get shit canned back to Bagram basically, and what happened after that?
So it was a few days later. The guys came back, and the CO basically said, "Hey, I'm going to wait till everybody gets back. And then we're going to have a meeting." So I got to tell you, I mean, for people to understand, I mean, to be sent back from the combat zone is about the greatest disgrace, in my opinion, you can take. And I was at rock bottom. I mean, that is probably the hardest thing. And I was hearing rumors that there were several people that were pushing for me to go to a Trident review board. And for anybody out there to understand that, a Trident review board is basically where a SEAL has to go before a board of individuals, usually enlisted and officers, and they basically decide, does he have the ability to still be a SEAL? And if they vote against that, they take his Trident and they send him out to the fleet. So I'm hearing this and still a lot in denial. I won't lie. I kept telling myself, hey man, you did the right thing. This is bullshit. You're being thrown under the bus. But I, went to that first meeting and it went back and forth, and definitely all the mistakes that I had made up to that point were laid out on the table. The training mistakes and hanging on too tight, and then a lot of the drinking incidents, all these different things were brought up, you know, culminating with this bad call on this mission. And yeah, man, it was brutal. I felt like I was getting shot up. And the CO and the master chief kind of listened to everything, and they said, okay, you know, go back to your room. We'll meet back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and we'll tell you what we decide. So I went back to my room, and it's the only time in my life that I actually thought about killing myself. I pulled my cig out and put it in my mouth, and I just, because I didn't think that, one, I didn't think that they were going to decide in my favor. And two, I didn't think I could fix it. So anyways, I mean, fate plays kind of interesting ways. My chair in my room in Bagram, my bed was it was a little small room, and my bed's off to the left, and my chair was up against the wall with my gear tree where my pistol was hanging, but directly across was my desk, and there was a picture of my wife and kids. And so here I am, this asshole with a gun in his mouth, and I'm looking at my wife and kids, and I'm like, what a fucking dumbass. So I put it away, and I went and saw the base chaplain, the just sort of chaplain, and talked to him and just said, dude, you know, this is what's happening. And he was kind of funny because he's like, he listened for a while, and then he goes, all right, so let me get this straight. He's like, so you got yourself in trouble. He's like, you don't know what's going to happen yet. He's like, but you were going to kill yourself, but they haven't told you what's going to happen until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. He's like, don't you think that's rushing things?
Can't you wait until they tell you to fuck off first?
So I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. So yeah, 8 o'clock the next morning, I go back, and the CO thankfully said, hey, you know, you fucked up. But he said, I've seen you do a lot of good things. I believe in you. So we're going to give you a second chance. But it doesn't come without accountability, and it's going to be a hard road for you. And he said, you know, the awards that you were going to get from this combat deployment are gone. We're taking all of them. You will receive an unofficial letter of reprimand, which in an officer's career, if you get a letter of reprimand, it ends your career. So what they did is they wrote an unofficial that the CO said, and I'm going to put it in my safe. I'm going to turn it over to the new CO. He said, you're going to do another tour as an assistant platoon commander. He said, if you screw that up, this unofficial letter becomes official, and it will end your career. And he said, and the last thing is you're going to Ranger School. So, and they said, dismissed.
Oh, shit.
And I'll be honest, I was bitter.
Yeah.
I was still angry.
Did you still deflect and say it's them, it's not me?
I did.
Yeah.
Not to them. Obviously, I was
right,
at least smart enough in this situation and not storm out of there and be an idiot.
But internally, it was still their bad.
Absolutely. That I'm being thrown under the bus.
At what point did that transition into accountability on your end?
Ranger School.
No shit.
Yeah. And there was a key moment that happened in Ranger School it was a key moment. I quit Ranger School.
Really?
Yeah. True story. I quit Ranger School for about a 12-hour period. So bitter. All I did over the holidays after we got back from that deployment was drink and sulk. That's the reality. I was an asshole to my family. I was just bitter.
Did any of your platoon mates have your back? They were all fuck you. No shit.
I got pretty ostracized. And you know what? Some of it I feel like I did to myself. I mean, because I was pushing everybody away because I was ashamed. Like, man, I really screwed up, and God, my professional reputation's been called on the line. And in this meeting, I kind of saw, hey, man, you know, nobody believes you're a leader. You're a shitbag. So that hurt on top of everything else. But I still was trying to justify in my mind that I had done the right thing. But no, man, I was, you know, guys were calling me Rambo Red, which is not a compliment, guys. You know, I actually had somebody write on, you know, we had our checkout board. Somebody wrote on the board, you know, hey, why don't you go ahead and kill yourself? You know, team guys, dude, they're, you know, brutally honest, bro. Yeah. So no, I really did not, which definitely just kind of added insult to injury. So, anyways, got home, went to Ranger School, and was only home for a couple of months. I mean, they were like, hey, you're going to get home, you're going to get settled, and you're going to Ranger School. So I went to the Ranger School the very beginning of February. And got to Ranger School, bitter, chip on my shoulder, went through the first part and just angry. Like, I didn't talk to any of these guys. And also, once again, arrogance played a part. I was like, hey, man, I'm a team guy. I'm in good shape. I'm going to crush this school. And, dude, Ranger School is hard. Yeah. Make no joke about it. I mean, it is not as hard as Buds, but, dude, it's a kick in the balls. And because I was angry and bitter and didn't have the right mindset, and it was hard, on the third or fourth day of training, you had the land nav course, and I used to teach land nav. So they started us about 3 a.m. in the morning. It's February in Fort Benning, and for those that don't know, Fort Benning, Georgia, I believe the air is piped straight in from Alaska in the winter. I mean, dude, it was so cold that morning that my Camelback hose froze.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And they wouldn't, so I'm used to the teams where, hey, if it's cold, dude, put some shit on.
Yeah.
And no, not there, man. It was like, take all your warmies off, get out and do this course. So all of that kind of culminated with me being pissed off. And I'm just like, well, you know what? I'm so good. I'm going to wait till the sun rises, and then I'll just crush this course and be done with it. Dumbass. Because it's actually a long, hard course, and I didn't finish. I ran out of time and failed. So got back, went to check in, and the Ranger instructors already had, I was the lone Navy guy in the Ranger School, and, there's a lot of animosity between SEALs and Rangers, and they started giving me all kinds of shit about failing the course, and all that pent up anger and frustration and denial and everything else just bubbled up. And I was like, fuck you guys. And they were like, are you quitting? And I was like, yeah, I'm done. So they were like, roger that, go back to the barracks. You're going to have to meet with the Ranger Colonel, and slept a fitful night. I barely slept, and I was so ashamed, dude. I've never quit anything in my life. Like, I felt like it was a train wreck that wouldn't stop. Like every time I'd feel like, the cars had settled, like another train would come along and smash into the back. And so the next morning I had to go see the Ranger Colonel. A guy by the name of KK Chin was the colonel who I've connected with earlier this year. He retired Lieutenant General, just awesome guy, much respect for him. And met with him, and he basically, what happened, and I gave him the sob story that I was this victim, this bullshit story. And thankfully he kind of saw right through that, and he was like, I got a really good friend, and this is where fate is amazing. I got a really good friend. He's a SEAL, pretty respected. Why don't I call him? And literally, like, he's dialing, and I'm kind of like, dude, I don't want to talk to any SEAL. I don't want to admit to a SEAL I quit. And dials him up, and it's Vince Peterson in the book. I changed his name. But Vince was my CO at 4, who, when I went back, and who mentored me, who encouraged me to get a commission. That's who he happens to know. And he happened to be on the other end of that phone. And he hands it to me, and I basically try and give Vince his same sob story. And he's, he was such a good leader. He kind of listened, and then he's like, yeah, he was like, do you honestly think that Ranger School is punishment? And I was like, yes. And he's like, you don't think you can learn something from it, that you can get better from it? And I was like, I don't know. And then this is where, as humans, when we screw up, we tend to think that there's no way to undo it, especially if it's a major mistake. And in this case, where it just been piling on. And I really just thought I had dug myself a hole that there was no way I could get out of. Like, between the leadership mistakes in Afghanistan, and the credibility, damage, and then quitting Ranger School, I was like, there's no way I can ever go back to the teams. Nobody's ever going to take me back. And he was like, listen, he's like, here's a deal. He said, people will follow you if you give them a reason to. People's memories are pretty short. And if you're setting the example, they're going to follow you after a while. I mean, it just is the nature of the beast. I mean, if you are around somebody that might have a bad reputation, over time, you're going to realize, dude, this person like sets the example. Like, I want to do what they're doing because that's what setting the example is. So he's like, go back to that course, crush it, and come back and give these guys a reason to follow you. And I was like, holy shit. it kind of changed my mindset. And I asked the colonel, I'm like, hey man, can I was like, can I get back in my class? And he's like, no. He's like, but I'll roll you back an entire class and you'll go sit in Ranger School jail for a month. And then you'll roll into a new class. So for a month, I walked around Fort Benning picking up trash.
Oh, shit.
And it
Fucking police call?
Yep. And it was during that month, dude, that I really kind of came to grips with the only person at fault was me.
Yeah.
And poor leadership decisions. And so it was a real wake-up call for me, an epiphany, and just kind of interesting the way it unfolded. But I needed it. Yeah. I needed it to become a better leader. And I mean, you know, I wasn't perfect, but I definitely learned and moved forward from there. And it was a hard road, man. You talk about coming back and earning it. It took, I mean, to this day, there are team guys that hate my guts, and there's nothing wrong with that because I'm sure they're just like, yeah, I remember that guy. He was that guy that fucked up in Afghanistan. But the guys that I work with, I earned back their trust.
Yeah. Well, so when you went back through Ranger School, looking back on it, do you feel like you went back and really crushed it, or?
Oh yeah. No, I crushed it. As a matter of fact, my goal was to be honor man, and I would have been honor man. But rollbacks can't be honor man. I didn't know that.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So,
how much weight did you lose? Do you remember?
I lost maybe 20 pounds. Not as bad as some guys. I mean, some guys lost like 50 pounds.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. So I didn't lose too bad, but I don't know. I think I didn't have a lot of weight to lose. Yeah. I was already pretty lean.
Is there anything that sticks out in your mind comparatively between Buds and Ranger School where you would say this part of Ranger School is for sure harder, or that just kind of sticks out as being like, holy fuck?
Yeah, absolutely. The difference between Buds and Ranger School, Buds is physically harder in the moment. Like there's a lot of evolutions in Buds that are just brutally hard. I mean, you know, being wet and cold and sandy and then having to do things is hard. And a lot of the reindeer games, I think, were more intensive at Buds. Ranger School, but Buds, here's the difference. Buds, aside from Hell Week and a few times in third phase and then the island, you get breaks at night. You get to get away from the instructors. If you want to go out into town and blow off some steam, you could do that. You have like pressure relief times. Whereas Ranger School, that does not happen. You have black hat Ranger instructors breathing down your throat and, you know, yelling at you 24/7. And that gets old real fast. I remember in the first couple of weeks, like, dude, I got 6 more weeks of this.
Yeah.
So,
well, the food is a big difference too, right? Like the one thing in Buds is that they fucking feed the shit out of you, which, you know, with the amount of cold that you're going through for that amount of time, I mean, they have to, you know, or
yeah.
it'd fucking kill people a lot, you know, I think. But to me, that was the thing sticking out. One of my best friends growing up went through Ranger School and then ultimately ended up at Delta. But, you know, I remember, you know, we went through it at a kind of a similar time, you know, and him telling me that, you know, kind of here's how it went. I was like, dude, it would have fucking killed me not being able to eat that much, you know, because back then it was like, I mean, dude, I would come home from, like you said, you know, at night when you have that little bit of fucking reprieve from, you know, from the stress of training. And I mean, I'd eat like after dinner, after we go to dinner as a class, I would stop. There was that little McDonald's next to the fucking barracks in the country store or whatever the fuck, the Surf Mart, whatever the fuck it was called. And, I mean, I would eat every night. I would get a double quarter pounder meal. This is after dinner. And then I would eat an entire box of either Swiss cake rolls or oatmeal cream pies. And there's fucking 10 of them in a box, and a 64-ounce sugared Gatorade every fucking night after dinner, you know. And still it was like I lost weight in Buds, you know. But anyway, did that have a role? I know you said you didn't have a lot of weight to lose, but did it still negatively impact you being hungry or feeling hungry? Did you feel hungry?
Yeah, no, you definitely felt hungry. Ranger School it's a great school. I will tell you, it is a good leadership school, but I do think Buds had set me up for success for the discomfort, because that's all it is. It's just you're uncomfortable. You lack of sleep, so you get very little sleep. You know, you're sleeping outside frequently. You're digging a hole and sleeping in a fighting position. You know, there's the lack of food, you know, depending on, you know, I went through in the winter, so often we were cold, and, you know, in Florida phase, you know, you're wet and cold, which, you know, we'd been through all that. Yeah. So it was just, being uncomfortable, but still having to perform and function and lead. And Ranger School is kind of interesting because what they do is everybody rotates through leadership. It's a leadership school. And everybody rotates through leadership positions. So one night, hey, Mike, you're the patrol leader. So you have to function as the patrol leader and run the whole thing. So I don't know. It sucked. Not eating sucked, but I don't remember it like it just killed me. There were definitely dudes. I mean, they got rolled because they called it, Yeah, they would get caught with food. They would steal stuff out of the MRE and try. Oh, grazing. That's what they called it. Grazing. If you were found with food on you, aside from the periods when you were allowed to eat.
Yeah, that's some funny shit.
So,
all right, so you kick ass.
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you the one thing. The one thing that I hated in Ranger School more than anything else was ruck humping.
Yeah.
And I was a communicator, dude. Like, I can carry a ruck for days, but it's the way the Army does it. Hats off to all you fucking infantry fuckers, man. Because you guys can put a ruck on, and there's a certain way that Army guys learn to ruck, the way they lean into it, and they like get their hips into it, and just, they can move. And dude, I didn't have that.
That swag.
I didn't have that swag. So, dude, we would do these long ruck marches all the time. And, like, I would end up having to run, like, half the time just to catch up.
That's a trip, man.
Yeah.
All right, so you kick ass at that. You come back to the team with kind of a newfound humility. What was that like coming back and furthering that uphill battle? What all did you have to do, or did you get right into a platoon and get kind of that second crack at it?
Yeah, I got right into a platoon. So I was already slotted. As a matter of fact, the troop had already started. Because I added, a month to my pipeline.
Was there some resistance in that new platoon? Were there some guys that like, I heard of you, motherfucker, and that just that culture, that feeling of,
oh, absolutely,
you can tell they don't fucking like you.
Yeah, I'd walk in the room and everybody stopped talking. So, no, I had all that.
That's always a good time.
Yeah. But you know what, man? The thing was, I came back and I realized, dude, this is the way it's going to be. You fucked up.
Yeah.
It's now on you to show them that you have the ability to do this. And you seriously fucked up. I mean, this is a job. I mean, when I left Afghanistan at Team 10, the guys were able to select what platoon and who they wanted to work for. And like, I wasn't even on the list. Yeah. So I kind of realized the reality of the situation. But I got to give a real shout out to my boss, who's still active duty, so I won't give his name, but he was a prior enlisted guy and a phenomenal leader. And when I came into that platoon on day one, he like sat me down. He was like, "Hey bro," he's like, "I heard what happened in Afghanistan." He's like, "I don't care." He's like, "All I care about is how you lead from this point forward." And he's like, "I'm going to give you opportunities to lead. I'm going to challenge you." And he said, "And sometimes I'm going to just need you to follow." And he's like, "I want you to follow my lead." He's like, "But I'm going to help you get back." And he did, man. He was so great. He was such a good mentor. He was a good leader. And he would look for, I think he knew that my confidence was shaken. I won't lie. I mean, it's tough to come back into this situation after you screwed up and be like, and he also knew he needed to build confidence in the guys to believe in me. Yeah. So he would frequently give me pretty complex training scenarios that really it should have been his job. And this is a tribute to him and his confidence and security in himself as a leader, because those would have been opportunities that other more junior, immature platoon commanders would be like, I have to do this so I can prove that I'm like this great leader, because it's this really complicated training scenario. But frequently that would happen, and he'd be like, "Hey, Red, you're in charge." And he'd step off and watch it with the training cadre. And I'd be navigating these really complicated, training scenarios. And that, A, it built my confidence, and B, it started to win the guys over, that they were like, "Oh, this guy does know what he's doing. He's making good decisions."
Yeah. How long would you say it was before, from the time you jumped back into that group until you felt like, you're at least on a level playing field, and the guys are kind of starting to accept you to where it's at least somewhat of a comfortable feeling, if there ever was one?
Towards the end of the workup, I mean, there were definitely dudes that I warmed up to, and we were becoming friends and hanging out with them and stuff like that. So I definitely, there was still a group that I felt like they didn't like me, and, it is what it is. And this kind of a thing for life, you're always going to have people that don't like you, fuck them.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, hey man, it is what it is. But really, the defining moment occurred in Iraq. About 2 months into the deployment, we got into a huge gunfight on a pretty complicated target, and we had guys that got fragged. Our interpreter got wounded pretty badly, and we also had 11 women and children in the middle of all this craziness. So navigating all that and helping to coordinate that, getting us moved, getting our wounded moved, getting these women and children moved with us to another building under fire, and then calling in an airstrike or a gunship mission on this other house 60 yards away. When we came back from that, the guys were like, Red did a good job.
That's cool.
And actually the XO who had kind of called me out for screwing up right at the very beginning of the workout, so he and I didn't, I didn't feel like he liked me a whole lot. Yeah. He actually he was the SOTA commander, and called me in. He said, "Hey man, I heard you did a great job tonight."
Wow.
So I was kind of like that kind of cemented my confidence. And I felt like, okay, man.
Reset button is officially hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fucking cool. All right. So, things are going fairly well from that standpoint. Walk us through, ultimately what led to, you being injured.
Yeah. So it was super eventful deployment. We got into quite a few firefights and, really went after it. So everything was really good. I was getting I felt like I had gotten my career back on track.
Before you talk about that one, were there any in between there that really stand out as being like, holy shit, fucking missions or operations?
No, by far. I think the biggest gunfight we got into was at night. There were quite a few after that, aside from the night I was wounded, but none of them were at that level. That night was crazy because we were taking down 3 buildings simultaneously and started taking gunfire from multiple positions. We had guys barricaded up on the rooftop in our building that were dropping grenades down on us. So that was probably the most complicated one we dealt with.
Yeah.
So, and after that, I do remember after that, I think the most impactful one for my mind that ended up being a dry hole was a Dust One operation. So for those that don't know, it's duty status, whereabouts unknown. So it was for a missing Marine and Army kid that had been captured, and we launched on that mission. In my opinion, I think that's kind of the highest level of special operations, to be able to go try and save, whether it's American service members or it's American citizens. So
how did that fucking pan out?
Dry hole.
Did they ever find them?
No, they found their bodies. Yeah,
do you know about how long after?
I can't remember if it was on the deployment or maybe right after the deployment, but I remember somebody telling me that they had, found the bodies.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure they were in good shape too, right?
Yeah.
God, it's fucking horrible, the shit that happens.
Yeah.
Not to get off track or too far in the weeds, but to me, like I'm trying to think of a worse fate, and I can't think of one.
No.
Honestly. But all right, so. Now moving forward into the end of that deployment / ultimately the most fateful day of your military career injury wise, can you walk us through that program or that time frame?
Yeah, got everything back on track, and we were right at the very end of the deployment. I was screening to go to our Tier 1 unit, and that's really what I wanted to do. I also had been actually, that night, I was supposed to run as the ground force commander for the first time. They were, kind of grooming me for that next position. And of course, we got word that that the number 1 leader for Al-Qaeda was going to be in a specific location, a guy we'd been trying to get all deployment.
Who was it at that point? Was it Zarqawi?
No, this was for Anbar, just for Anbar. I'm sorry, the number 1 leader for Anbar.
I got you.
I should have said that. So we were getting ready, and that mission, it got delayed. And then finally, like 1 a.m., we got approval. So launched on that mission. We took down the target, and I was on the initial assault and nothing happened. Like we went in and just kind of a big letdown. Because we really expected pretty heavy resistance. We believed he was going to be there. So saw a lot of activity that we had recently missed him, and then started searching the compound and started finding explosives and IED making equipment kind of buried in some of the outer house and the walls and stuff like that. So it's like 3 a.m. now. The external security team's the EOD guy's gonna blow all that up, and we were like, all right, we're gonna call it a night. It's gonna be a quiet night. And snipers were like, hey man, you got a whole bunch of activity on another house about 150 yards away. We just watched like 5 guys run across the street into some vegetation. So ground force commander, my boss came up and said, hey man, why don't you take your team and we've seen this before, let's go wrap these dudes up and see what they know. So took my team, maneuvered, and was walking into some pretty heavy vegetation. At this point, we had a gunship up overhead, and I'm like, hey man, do you see any weapons? Do you see anything? Nope. Just laying there, not doing anything. I'm like, all right, roger that. So we're pushing through this vegetation, and at some point they're like, hey man, you guys need to turn. You're going to miss them. Okay, roger that. So we go to make this turn, and on our left flank, we had 2 new guys and one of our EOD guys. We didn't realize it in the moment, but they didn't make the turn. I don't know if they weren't listening to the radio or what the deal was, but the in between me was the Terp and another guy, and they were like, hey, those guys are gone. I'm like, what? So yeah, I mean, pretty hairy situation. You've got unknown enemy and us in this vegetation separated now. So my guy on the right flank was like, hey man, I'm on the edge of the field. Why don't we push out? And those guys came up. We got them on the radio. I said, do the same thing. Push out on the left. Let's move up to the north. Let's reconnect. Then we'll go in and wrap these guys up. So we did that. And we're pushing out of the the northeast corner of this field, and our last couple of guys that were stepping out of the field, literally, one of them stepped on an enemy fighter that was laying there in the ambush line, and engaged him. And when that happened, it just set off this ambush. So we estimate that it was 14, 15 guys in this ambush line that had 2 PKM machine guns set up. And I was walking towards the road to link up with the other guys, with our Terp and everybody else kind of behind me when that happened. So our medic initially got hit. He took a round right below the knee, and then one of our other guys ran forward to grab him and start dragging him back, and then he got stitched up, and then I got hit in the arm probably within the first minute, and stitched across the body armor. Started yelling. They were trying to move back. Started laying down fire. And when I was yelling, I think both machine guns got turned on me at that point. And that's when I was taking rounds off my helmet, off my gun. I got my left night vision tube shot off, and turned to move back. The only point of cover we had, so it was nothing but like 1,000 yards of empty Iraqi desert behind us, if not more. And then there was like a tractor tire about 15 yards behind me, like a big, like John Deere style tire. So the guys had fallen back to that, and I turned to try and move back to that. It was at that point that a round caught me in the face, kind of right in front of my ear, traveled through my face, blew off most of my nose, blew out my right cheekbone, broke what was left of the cheek and kicked it out to the right, like shattered the head of it, broke the head of my jaw, shattered my jaw down to my chin, kind of vaporized the orbital floor, broke all the bones above my eye dropped down, and it knocked me out. So, and the guy saw this and thought that I was dead. So I'm unconscious on the ground, and literally this entire firefight's like happening over me. So came to, however long later. And
I'm assuming that was a 7.62 by 54 round that hit you.
Yeah. I was hit. All of them that we can tell, were PKM, which sometimes I think I'm actually kind of lucky, and people are like, "What?" But I was so close, and it was such a high velocity round because AKs have a tendency to tumble.
Yeah.
That I actually think it did less damage than it would have.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, an AK round is probably gonna do worse in that area than that round because it's moving slower and it's gonna fucking tumble. You know? Same with like one of the bitches of green tip is the velocity and penetration as such. That's what she said.
For me, it's velocity.
Yeah, it's not so much penetration.
I'm like a rabbit.
Yeah, I'm really fast. It's just not that fucking big. Wait, what? I mean, we shot a guy in Iraq that, I think we didn't count how many holes. There was a fuck ton. I mean, he was a pincushion in his torso, and that motherfucker ran for 60, 65 yards before he went down, you know.
Well, if you look at, if you've done a boar hunting,
yeah.
I mean, you shoot a boar with, riddled. I mean, we just did that not that long ago. You riddle a boar with 5.56 and they'll run.
Yeah, just little
forever.
pinpricks. But, anyway. So one question, while this is happening, obviously you recall it well enough to tell the story. When it was happening, was the adrenaline such that there wasn't pain, or could you feel it even in that moment?
So when I was hitting the arm, no, that was super painful. And I realized it. I actually thought my arm had been shot off.
Can you show kind of, do you know where it went in? And
oh, yeah. So the rounds, so I was hit by 2 rounds. So one round hit me in the bicep and the other round hit me on the inside of the forearm. So it like blew everything out the backside. And what happened when it hit me, my arm, it went back and it caught on my like radio, and I couldn't feel a thing. Like literally, it felt like hitting your funny bone, but amplify it by like 1,000. Like literally, I felt like I had been like a gorilla had hit me in the arm with a bat, and then like an electrical lightning bolt had traveled up my arm, up the back of my spine, and just slammed me in the back of the head. And then I couldn't feel anything. So when I reached over, I didn't feel my arm. So that's why I originally thought. And then I think when I came to laying on the ground, I was laying on my back. And I have to think I might have been laying on my arm because I also didn't feel it then. I reached for it then because I was thinking to myself, holy shit, you got your arm shot off. Like, dude, you got to get a tourniquet on or you're going to bleed out. So it was kind of a shock to me. And that's why if you've ever read the Trident at the beginning, I say my arm was blown off, but then I realized, when I get to the hospital, I realized, holy shit, I still have an arm.
Yeah.
So that was super painful. When I came to after being hit in the face, I felt no pain. Like, but I just felt messed up. Like I was like, dude, you are seriously fucked up. And it took a minute to figure out like, hey, I was trying to put 2 and 2 together. Like what happened, like, the fog of getting your bell rung and trying to put 2 and 2 back together, and then kind of realizing, hey dude, you're still in a firefight. Literally, you've got rounds traveling over you. Like, don't sit up. And for whatever reason, I also, to this day, I don't know why I did it, but I took my helmet off in the middle of that firefight.
That's smart.
Yeah. The life-saving piece of equipment that I have, I took it off.
This is too much protection. I got to get this
exactly.
off.
I don't know why I did. And I actually took a round through the helmet laying on the ground.
Oh, sure.
So my helmet has a bullet hole through it right in the forehead, which is why that's actually drawn on the skull, but it was actually in my helmet. So the damage to the skull, that's actually taken off the CT scan. But then my buddy who drew that, drew it in the skull.
For those of you on the YouTube version, I'm going to hold it up as close as I can. This is the coin that Jay gave me just before we sat down, but it's really cool. He's got like you said, the bullet hole in the skull and in the face where he was just talking about getting shot. But I appreciate the coin. That's fucking really cool, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
All right, so you come to. Is the gunfight still taking place over top of you when you wake up? Is it still? You're just like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
What? So what did you do at that point after you take your helmet off and decide? Did you try to get on the radio or what happened?
No, I called out. There was a lull in fire, and I called out to my team lead. We'll call him Al, and they were like dumbfounded. He's like, "Holy shit, you're still alive!" And I knew how messed up I was, and I was like, "You don't have a whole lot of time." So I called out and kind of in a lull, and then I yelled out, "How long to the Medevac?" And he was like, 5 minutes. Fucking liar. I think he told me 5 minutes at least 3 or 4 more times.
That reminds me of the movie Money Pit, right? How long is it going to take? 2 weeks. Fucking nine
That was a great movie. Yeah.
Every 2 weeks, like, how much longer? 2 weeks. Like, a year later, it's fucking still going.
But yeah, it was, I mean, shit show. And, I mean, I would not be here if it wasn't for the guys. I mean, they did a great job fighting back. My team leader actually ran forward in a Lowland fire and got me and dragged me back and got a tourniquet on my arm. And the guys, you know, our medics shot. So they were the ones trying to figure out, I think they packed my face with Curlex and, you know, tried to figure out what the hell to do with me. And then we ended up calling in, well, actually it was in between fire missions. We ended up calling in the fire mission and it ended up being, I don't know, 8 or 9 fire missions. But it was, we literally had to call directly on our position. The gunship, I was only 45 feet from the machine gun that had me pinned down and they were about 15 yards behind me. And the gunship denied the first 2 requests. And they were like, dude, you guys have to figure out how to move back. Like, I mean, you're so danger close, we're going to kill you. Yeah. And my team lead called back and was like, bro, like, there's no place to go. Like, there's nothing. Like, it's nothing but empty Iraqi desert. Like, we got dudes that are bleeding out and we're running out of ammo. The gunfight lasted about 40 minutes, I guess.
So, and you were hit right at the start. So, I mean, there's probably 30, 35 minutes that you were laying there fucked up.
Yeah. And I don't know how long I was unconscious. I don't know. It was 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever. But so anyways, they called in these firemen. And I remember, like, I mean, kind of surreal. Al called out to me and was like, incoming. And you can hear, you know, you've been out there, you can hear the gun go off. And then like this period of time while it's coming down, you know, and then all of a sudden it like impacted, like literally it felt like right in front of me. And blew up over us. But the first volley of rounds took out the machine gunner that was, well, at least injured him. I could hear, he stopped firing and I could hear him yelling. He was calling out to Allah. And I do remember thinking, stand by, fucker. And then they called in the next volley. And I think it was somewhere in there when Al ran forward and grabbed me and got me back to the tire, got a tourniquet on my arm.
Was there a specific award for Al doing that?
So I wanted him to get a Navy Cross. It got downgraded to a Silver Star. Yeah. And our other guy got a Silver Star also for pulling our medic back in that. To this day, I will always stand that Al deserves a cross. Yeah. I've talked to my boss my boss at that time who's still active duty. Can we go back someday and resubmit? Yeah. So
fucking A, man. All right. So the second volley of fire extinguishes the enemy ambush pretty well.
Yeah, and then they call in a couple more, and then finally we call in the Medevac. Medevac lands about 75 yards from us. Al comes up and tries to help me get up, which it was at that point I felt the pain again when he started moving me. I was like, holy shit, that hurts. I'm like, dude, stop. Like, let me get up. And got up and walked to the helicopter. I told him, kind of funny shit you think about, but I was like, dude, grab my arm and grab my helmet. And I'm sure he was like, well, your arm, what are you talking about? Yeah. But I remember walking to the helo and like I was hunched over because I was bleeding so badly. And I just, to this day, I can still kind of see this visual of all this blood just pouring out of my face as I walked to the helo. And I was first one to the helo. They were obviously because both the other guys had leg injuries, so they were helping them. And I remember grabbing onto that door handle of the 60, and it was a TF-160th Medevac. So big shout out to those guys. So they got me in and they sat me up against the far wall next to the door gunner. And then they put in our other 2 guys. Well, it wasn't really configured for 3 dudes. It was configured for 2. So they couldn't shut the door. So this is where I don't remember parts of this story, which is interesting because years later I got to meet the Medevac crew. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I managed to track them down and I got to meet both the door gunners and the flight medic on that helo. And they filled in gaps and they said, yeah, you know, he was feverishly working between the 3 of us. And what he did is he had me put my thumb up on my chest. And he made the door gunner like keep an eye on me, like, and if my hand dropped, like to yell at me Cause yeah, dude, I was telling myself, stay awake, stay alive. And I was convinced, cause everything in me was like, just go to sleep. But I knew if I went to sleep, like I'd never wake up again. But I didn't know it, that I was drifting in and out of consciousness. So they would like yell at me, and I'd get my thumb back up and, fucking bleed all over myself. But interesting thing that they told me, which is kind of, one, they didn't know who we were. They just knew we were SEALs, and they didn't know if we survived or not. Like it only was years later when I managed to track them down and said, "Hey, man," and they were like, "Oh my God, we totally remember."
Like
that
a
now.
Crazy ex-girlfriend, Phoenix rising from the ashes. You track those fuckers.
Some asshole. But they told me, and this I found, I don't know, crazy. I never would have thought about this. So because the door was open, and we were all bleeding like stuck pigs. I mean, I was shot multiple times. Our other guy was shot multiple times, and the medic was, pretty severe injury, below his knee. Like we were bleeding all over the inside of that helo, and the wind was swirling through. So it literally covered everything in the helo in blood. They said when they got to Baghdad and landed, like they were all coated in blood.
Wow.
And he said it took like a month to try and get the blood out of everything.
Yeah. The AC vents, fucking Q-tip the AC vents. That sounds like a scene out of a fucking movie.
Yeah.
Were the other two guys, the corpsman and the other bro of yours, did they make it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they did great.
Did they go back to full duty or did?
They didn't go. One of the guys, I think he tried to go back to full duty the fastest, and then he actually tried to screen like a year later, and the day he screened was like the worst weather. I mean, like a monsoon hurricane was hitting when those guys did that screening, and he didn't make the cut. So he went out to the West Coast, and everything I've heard, he's still doing great. Yeah, so
that's good.
The other guy he did a couple more platoons, and then now he's out and he's doing good. I talk to him on a regular basis.
Oh, that's good. All right. So what was the last thing you remember from that Medevac ride? Do you remember unloading off of it and going into?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. There was an incident that for years I kind of questioned if it actually happened. So, and there are pieces. It's almost like you see clips in a movie in your mind. Like I remember I wasn't able to walk when I got off the helo. So they unloaded me off the helo and they put me on this little cart. And I remember riding on that cart looking up, and our medic was with me. And I remember he was like yelling at me. And we went under like this underpass, or I don't know, could have been a rooftop going into the bay or whatever it was. But I remember there was a dude like smoking a cigarette, like looking down at me. Like I remember that vividly. And then I remember them like taking my gear off. Like they got to remove all your gear. So I remember them like cutting all my gear off. And I was just like, dude, stay awake, stay alive. You're almost there. And they got me into the operating room. And like all this activity occurred, and like I'm like, hey, dude, I am good. Like I can let go now, and I can die, and they'll save me. Like I had watched this show called Baghdad ER, or I don't know if you ever saw it, but it was like they were following our medical teams in Iraq. And I remember the statistic that I had seen that they said, hey man, our guys are so good that if you show up with a pulse, you got a 90% chance of making it. So that was like what I was focused on in my mind. So I got there and I'm like, dude, I'm good. Like I can die now because I showed up. Check.
Yeah.
Winning, and they'll save me. So like I started to let go, and I just remember like this darkness and just drifting off. But right about that moment, I felt this tug on my left side, and I kind of look up. And this nurse is standing there and yells out, he's still got a bomb on him. And dude, everybody runs out of the operating room. Like everybody. Like it was like something out of a fucking Looney Tunes cartoon. And I remember thinking, are you shitting me? Like, dude, like I've got nothing. Like I'm like dying. And that was like my last thought.
Yeah.
And so years later, I actually found that nurse. Like she reached out to me and was like, hey, I was one of your nurses in the operating room. I was like, tell me this happened. And she was like, yeah, I was your nurse.
Dude, that is such a trip fucking years later to link up with people that play that pivotal role.
I've tried to track down a lot of the people. I'd love to still find, I haven't found all the doctors. I'd like to find some more of the doctors that were in the operating room that saved me.
Yeah, it's a trip. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So what was the next thing you remember after that? Germany or all the way back at Walter Reed or?
No, the next thing I remember, no, I was pretty lucid. There are periods that I don't remember, but I remember waking up in Baghdad, and my CO and Mass Chief were there, and so they were, they're there, and I'm talking to them, or I wasn't talking. As a matter of fact, I do remember the very first thing. I remember looking at my arm and being like, "Holy shit, I still got an arm!" Like, cool. And then I remember I tried to speak and I couldn't talk. And the nurse was like, "Hey, yeah, you've been all shot in the face. You're trached and wired shut. You're not going to be able to speak." So I was like, "All right, well, let me write something down." So they gave me a notebook, and I wrote down 3 questions. I wrote down, are the guys okay? Has my wife been notified?
Do I still have a dick?
And well, almost. I said, "Do I still look pretty?" So,
well,
you never really had one, so no. And they were like, "No, you were never that pretty, anyways." But
did they answer him?
Yeah.
That's what they said.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, guys are good." They were like, "They're out of surgery and they're stable." The CO was like, "I've talked to your wife; she knows." And they said, "No, you never look pretty." So, so I remember that. I remember they. What I don't remember is they moved me from Baghdad to Balad. I don't remember that at all. I do remember waking up in Balad in the ICU because the guys came up to Balad and I got to see them, and that was pretty awesome. And then I don't remember going from Balad to Germany. I don't remember that at all. There's no memory of that. As a matter of fact, pretty cool. One of the nurses in Balad, I mean, here's a crazy story. I go play in a golf tournament last year, and this dude comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, man, I was one of your nurses in Balad." And I was like, "Holy shit, dude. Like, I don't remember any of that." And he pulls out his phone and shows me a picture of me.
No
like,
shit.
like on loading. He's like, "I loaded you on the bus to Germany." I was like, "Dude, I don't remember that at all." And yeah, and I'm in the, I got all this contraptions and shit on me.
Yeah. Wow.
So I don't remember that at all. The flight home was miserable. I do remember that. I thought I was going to suffocate. If anybody's ever had a trach, they suck. You get a lot of mucus and congestion, and if it's not constantly cleaned out, especially I think if you're not used to it, and I was not used to it, like when you move, it causes coughing fits, which I think creates more mucus and shit. And the whole flight, I felt like I was going to suffocate.
This makes me want to go have a smoke real quick.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Good luck to those of you who like, lung cancer's a bitch, baby.
It's making me want to clear my throat just hearing you tell the fucking story.
So, and I wore that trach for 7 months and 2 days.
Fuck.
It sucked.
7 fucking months.
So,
did you get to the point where you're cleaning it out yourself, or you really can't?
My wife was.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, my wife is a saint.
Trooper.
She was my best nurse. When they finally brought me home, I still had the trach. I was still wired shut. I had an external fixator. I had a stomach tube that they were feeding me through, and my wife was, she was my main nurse that was helping me with all that.
Fucking amazing. So 7 months. Is that how long you were at Walter Reed, or from the time you got injured until you made it home? It was a 7-month period? No,
it was 8 weeks. I was at Walter Reed or Bethesda. It hadn't switched over yet. So 8 weeks, and then they sent me home, and I started all the outpatient stuff. And that was, I'll be honest, that was a little intimidating, because I didn't feel like I was ready. Man, I could barely walk. Yeah. Most of the time I was still in a wheelchair. I still got all these tubes. They wanted to cap the trach so I could start breathing from my mouth, and that was a weird experience too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said, "Hey man, we've come to find that people tend to heal better when they're home. They're more relaxed, more comfortable." I will admit, a hospital sucks, dude. Yeah. You're every 5 minutes, somebody's poking and prodding you. And
yeah.
So yeah, I went home after 8 weeks, and then it just started, it was almost 40 surgeries over 4 years.
Wow. Are you at a point now where you still have to have like any maintenance surgeries or anything, or is it pretty much you're finished with that?
Yeah. I think I'm done. there are people that talk about scar revision, and it's been interesting over the years. I've had a couple of orthopedics doctors that are like, oh yeah, we can give you more movement. And then they take a look at the x-ray and they're like, holy shit. Like, we don't know how your arm functions.
Yeah. What is the deal with the limited range of movement? Is it because of metal and such in it, or what?
No, most of the metal's been removed. I do still have some remnants. I do still have some pins, and I had a screw that broke off and stuff like that that's in there. I still have metal pins in my jaw, which is kind of interesting to look at under the x-ray. I still have screws in my skull.
Yeah.
But for the arm, so pretty amazing. I got to give a shout out to this guy, and this is a pretty high level of medicine, in my opinion. There's some doctors out there that I think are pretty arrogant. I think they get some of that God complex, and they're like, I can do anything. And the only reason I still have an arm is because the head of orthopedics at Bethesda at the time was a former SEAL.
Oh.
And he was like, yeah, my team's like, we should amputate your arm. Because when I came to, I had no use of my left hand, and they were like, your elbow is destroyed. They could not have done a better job. I mean, this bullet shattered the head of my ulna radius, and this bullet took off a huge chunk and shattered the head of my humerus.
Oh, okay.
So like literally the two parts that make an elbow, or the three parts, if you will, it just kind of destroyed. So they were going to amputate, and then this doctor, his name's Dan Blake, he's out now. I name him in the book. He's an amazing guy. He became a friend. He fought to save my arm, but it reached a point where he was like, Jay, I don't know what else to do anymore. I grew a whole bunch of extra bone growth, something called heterotopic ossification.
Can you spell
that? No.
For the audience, I know how to spell it, but
that's I just want to let you know that's a 47-point word in Scrabble.
Jesus Christ. Can you even make it in Scrabble?
No, you'd have to steal shit.
Yeah.
But and HO is a real problem from war. A lot of guys get it because what happened. And there may be some medical person out there that says, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But I don't know. I studied a lot when I was in the hospital because one of the downsides of like really severe injuries is there's like no textbook.
Yeah.
So like when the doctors come in, they're not like, hey, bro, this is what happened to you, and here's what we're going to do to fix you. They come in and they go, you're really fucked up.
Yeah.
So we could take option A, which has some risks, and we could take option B, which has different risks, and we could take option C, which has different risks. And all these have different outcomes. What do you want to do? And my wife and I are like, how do we know? I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
So we ended up like, like reading medical journals and trying to figure things out. So this HO, it's oftentimes caused by a severe injury where I think bone tissue gets interspersed with muscle tissue and things like that. And the body's in a weird state, and it actually starts growing wisp of bone. And That's exactly what it is. So I literally had like this huge bony elbow, and my arm was fused in place. I couldn't bend it. And my doctor, Dan Blake, was like, hey man, you've kind of reached the point of, I don't know what else to do with you. So I have the doctor I learned at, who's at Johns Hopkins, like, you should go there. So I went there, and that doctor totally rebuilt my elbow as best he could. So, and gave me a little bit of mobility. I can bend this much and I can extend this much.
From a physical activity standpoint, is there pain, like if you try to work out and use it to a certain extent, and also, like, it still seems like there's a significant amount of muscle tissue there. You're able to still use it enough to maintain that and not atrophy, it looks like, right?
And I use it because I honestly feel like if I don't use it, I feel like it hurts more. It hurts more to use it or not use it,
yeah.
So, and that's kind of my mindset. And they told me that at the very beginning, this doctor that rebuilt it was like, hey, you're going to have about 10 years. And after 10 years, he's like, the arthritis will be so bad that you're just going to need a new elbow.
Yeah.
He also told me I'd never lift more than 50 pounds with this arm. So I beat both those things by trying to stay as active as possible.
Yeah.
I guess it's coming to understand the difference between pain and discomfort. Like sometimes it'll hurt. Like I'll tell you, just hanging from a bar puts stress on it. but it's not pain. It's just kind of uncomfortable and it stretches it out.
Yeah.
So I just do it. I do anything. I try to figure out ways to do anything I can to keep it moving.
Yeah. From kind of a supportive tensile strength standpoint, say bench press as an example. I know before we came on air, you were talking about doing a 300, 400, 500 goal, which is 300 bench, 400 squat, 500 deadlift. In terms of that, do you run the risk of, because it's so manufactured and certain angles shear things off? I mean, has that been cleared by a doctor? Like, do you worry about?
No, they would probably tell me, what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, do you worry about that? Have you?
I do a little bit, but I am not jumping up in crazy ways. I mean, it has been years. I mean, I'll be honest. I couldn't even lift the bar when I first started trying to lift again.
Yeah.
A 45-pound bar I could not lift. So it has been years that I've worked myself up. I deadlifted 385 3 times earlier this year. So this ramp up to 500, can I do it? I don't know. That's why I got a coach. And also, like I said, understanding the difference between pain and discomfort.
Yeah.
If I'm getting up to, 450 or something like that, and then like, man, I feel like I'm tearing something, then I'm going to have to stop.
Yeah.
But doctors don't, like when they look on an x-ray, I mean, it is held together by muscle and scar tissue. I don't have the normal physiological makeup of a regular elbow.
Yeah.
That's why, when I've had doctors that have looked at it after the fact, they're like, dude, we don't know how your arm just doesn't dislocate on its own.
Yeah.
But it's strong. I mean, it holds together. I mean, when I deadlift, it's not painful.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging at least. I am curious, the first time you came home and saw your kids, or I'm assuming they probably came and saw you, the first time that you saw them post-injury, what was that like?
So this is something where this is where my wife and I'm really blessed with her. She really is the warrior wife. Her and I were in lockstep agreement. One, I did not, and she was in agreement, want the kids to see me in the beginning. I didn't want them to see me in the hospital bed, and I looked really rough in the beginning. I had massive swelling. You remember the cartoon character Arnold that had the football head?
Yeah.
Like the right side of my head looked like that. It literally was swollen out to here. My eyes were totally bloodshot, bright red. I had nothing left of a nose. I had these orange tubes they had put in what was left of my nose. My face was crisscrossed with blue stitches. And I'm trached and I'm just messed up. So I was like, I don't want to scare the kids. And the other thing, I couldn't walk. I had lost so much blood. I was so weak that I couldn't walk. So I told my wife, I said, hey, I want them to fix me some facially. And then I want the ability to walk into the room where they are. So there was that. And then thankfully we had a good family that was able to keep the kids on their regular schedule. So even though my wife was up at the hospital, we had family at home that was keeping them school, soccer, all the different things that kept their schedule, which I think is really important for kids. So it was really 3.5 weeks before I saw the kids for the first time.
Were you emotional the first time?
Yeah, I was, but I wanted to, I didn't want to, I recognize no different in leadership. People react off how you react. So if I'm a mess, my kids are going to think I'm a mess.
Yeah.
And they're going to be a mess. And then this is where my wife was really smart. She went and bought them toys that I could give them. And they were young. I mean, my son was 7 and my middle daughter was 4 and my youngest was 2. Yeah. And so, yeah, we were in the little family room at Bethesda and, I gave them toys and yeah, I think my middle daughter, told my wife, daddy looks funny, but he seems okay.
Yeah.
So,
man, was the 7-year-old similarly unshaken, or was he more affected by it?
I think he was okay. One, I don't know. He was a boy, and we gave him a Nintendo DS. So like, dude,
he's like, yeah, whatever.
He's like, yeah, man. And he had wanted a Nintendo DS for a while, so he was like totally in heaven. Years later, I feel like I saw some of the impact, and my kids have been great. And I think my wife and I have always just maintained a positive mindset in how we've dealt with everything. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I do remember there was a morning when I was home and I woke up, and I just think the weight of all of it, like waking up and, I'd had multiple infection problems. The nose they had originally tried to build me, they had cut off. So I literally just had a hole in my face, and I just, they had messed up the eye surgery. So I had an eye patch, and it was super painful. I had all this pressure in my head, and, I'm still trached, and I'm being fed through this damn tube. And like, I woke up just crying my eyes out, like, this fucking sucks. Like, but, my youngest daughter came up, and I was just like, dude, you got to get up. Like, you got to get up. You can't lay here. You've got to get up for her. You got to like set the example.
The elves are watching.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a kind of a moment that I definitely remember. But other than that, I feel like the kids did good with it, and we stayed positive with it, which I think they fed off. Yeah. The only thing I will say that I feel like I think for team guys, we take for granted the world our kids grow up in. And we don't, because we grew up in this world. For us, it's just kind of a normal world. And you don't realize how different and especially in wartime it is. and I think that came home pretty vividly to me. We went to a event. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years after my injury, we got invited to an event, and, my wife and kids were with me, and someone was talking to my son, and he was kind of off to the side. He might've been 12 years old at this point. And they said, "Oh, do you want to be a SEAL like your dad?" And my son, in that candor that only kids can have, was like, "No." He's like, SEALs get killed and blown up and seriously wounded like all the time.
Because that was his interpretation.
That was his world. Yeah. Well, I mean, and he had seen it with friends of ours that had been killed. And so that was kind of wow, this is the world my kids have grown up in. And now they're, they're great.
Yeah.
So
it is amazing the lens with which children, view, not just view, but accept whatever it is that they're around, and I agree. It's hard to kind of rationalize or reconcile what normal is for them, and whether it's kids in this country, I mean, there's kids all over the world that have just horrible experiences, that are largely unaffected because they don't know anything different, but it is truly remarkable, and I think speaks volumes to the resiliency of human nature of being able to be able to live through those types of things and be largely unaffected. I am curious, for you, I know you just mentioned the one time you were crying. Were there any other times? I want to pull the sign, if I believe it's still in here, right? The sign that you wrote. But while I'm looking for that, were there other times from the time that you first got back until you kind of were as recovered as you're going to become long-term wise, that you had moments of, I don't want to call them weakness, but just moments of hardship where you kind of broke down? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were that one stands out the most, but I mean, there were definitely, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, to go through that sucks. I mean, I don't care who you are. But what I tried to focus on was I still have my limbs. I could come back. And I'll be honest, I mean, the world works in interesting ways. I mean, I think God works in interesting ways. I think that everything that happened to me, screwing up as a leader and having to go through that journey, which a lot of people think, oh, your injury must have been the worst thing that's ever happened to you. No, man, like failing as a leader and being ostracized from the community for a while and having to earn that back was the hardest thing I've ever been through. So when I got wounded, even though, trust me, there were times it sucked, I was like, come on, man, you've been through worse. You climbed out of that dark hole that, guys would have, not thought twice if you had just quit and left.
Yeah.
So that's probably it.
I want to take a quick second to read the sign that you wrote that was on your door at the hospital. It says, "Attention to all who enter here. If you are coming into this room with sorrow or to feel sorry for my wounds, go elsewhere. The wounds I received, I got in a job I love, doing it for the people I love, supporting the freedom of a country I deeply love. I am incredibly tough and will make a full recovery. What is full? Question mark. That is the absolute utmost physically my body has the ability to recover. Then I will push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you are about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. From the management, with a trident tacked in there. When did you write that, and what was the inspiration for doing so?
So that got written probably.
And have you memorized it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. No, because I talk a lot about it. I talk a lot about it for a lot of reasons. One, because it really was a little bit of a defining moment. Although I won't say that it was like I sat there and thought about it for days before I wrote it. It all happened pretty quickly. And it just, it was a lot. It was pretty heavy to in those first few days to come to the realization of everything that happened. I'll be honest, I remember in the very beginning, one night, I dreamed that it was all a dream.
Really?
And I dreamed that I woke up and I was okay, and that I just dreamt all that.
Did you wake up pissed off when?
Well, no, because then it got even weirder, because then I dreamed that not only then that dream turned into a nightmare, because I not only dreamed that it had happened, that I was actually injured worse and like fucking couldn't talk or anything. It was or couldn't move or anything. But all that was very vivid. But anyways, so there were several days where I was kind of struggling with everything, and the doctor's saying, hey, this was at the very beginning where they're talking about, we might have to amputate your arm, and you're going to be trached and all these different things for a long time. You're talking years of surgeries to put you back together. Your special operations career is over. So struggling with all that. And one day I had some people in the room, and I was drifting off, and they were kind of having a conversation to themselves. And in a military hospital in a war is a hard place to be, especially on a wounded ward. I mean, dude, you got dudes who are burned and blown up and missing limbs and traumatic brain injuries and shot in the face. And, so their conversation was really, it was pitiful. It was like, oh gosh, these young men and women, we send them off to war, and this is the after effect, and they're never going to be the same. They're never going to be able to be successful. They're always going to be damaged. And they kind of left, and I was in that really light state where you can hear what people are saying, but you're not quite awake. But the more I thought about it, the more it kind of...
So married.
That's how my wife listens to me all the time.
Yeah. What was that, honey?
Yeah. So my wife actually came back in, and I was kind of angry about it. I was like, is that me? Like, is that going to be my end state? Am I going to be like the Lieutenant Dan of Forrest Gump, just disgruntled veteran,
Throwing ice cream in the bedpan.
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest, I don't think if I had been through the journey I'd been through before, if I would have come to this decision as quickly as I did. And this is where I tell people, I think the greatest gift you have in this life is free will. No matter what bad thing happens to you, you decide how you're going to react to it. You can lay there and feel sorry for yourself and be the victim, which is kind of what I did when I got myself in trouble. I was the victim, this is, everybody did this to me. Yeah. Or, you can choose to be the victor and be positive and just drive forward, because the one thing you can't do is, by sheer will, change the outcome of what happened. And you can never go back and change the past. All you can do is shape your future. So you have a choice. You have a choice in what you're going to do. And I thought about that. And I thought about, how am I going to, I got kids, I got a wife. And I also thought about, there's other wounded kids around me. And for all intents and purposes, I was pretty old. I was 32 when I got wounded. And, most of these guys literally that were wounded around me were like between 18 and 22. Yeah. So I was like, dude, you're not going to do that. That ain't you. Like, you are going to be positive and you're going to get off this X, which I hadn't even thought of that phrase back then, but that was kind of the mindset. So when my wife came in, I told her, I said, hey, never again. Nobody's going to come into this room with pity. I said, I refuse to feel sorry for myself, and I'm not going to let anybody else. So that's how that, and I wrote out that sign right then and there,
Yeah.
and told her to put it on the door. And it, a firefighter took a picture of it and wrote a blog about it a couple of days later, and it went viral.
Yeah, I remember seeing it long before I ever met you. And just for the listener, Jay and I have actually known each other for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Hats off to Buffalo Chip and the whole Sturgis crew as it relates to Buffalo Chip.
Yes, the Buffalo. It's such good times.
Because that's how we know each other. And actually, this book, before I forget, is the original copy that you gave me back way back when we first met. So
nice, man.
Yeah, so I still have it. It's treasured in my bookcase, my varsity bookcase at home in my office.
Thank you, sir.
But the point I wanted to bring up is I remember seeing that sign, and it was completely unrelated to the community. Like it was just on the internet somewhere that popped up in a news feed or something, and I was like, I read it and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I see the trident, and I'm like, motherfucker, and I was like, that's fucking badass. It was neat to see.
And we didn't put the trident. It wasn't us.
Oh,
it was a team guy.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
But somebody had come to the room and they took their trident off and they tacked it
That's
into the
awesome.
sign.
Yeah, that's really cool. But to me, it was just like, man, that's way to represent. Like it was a proud moment for me to see that being represented in the U.S. media, not a team guy buddy sent it to me. Like it was in the fucking news essentially, and it was really neat to see. And and then to get to meet you, down the road a couple of years later was a special moment. It was neat to put the face to the sign name, if you will. But to me, one of the things there's two kind of key components that I'd love to talk about in terms of recovery aftermath. What motivates you now? All kind of in the same vein, and those two things are the suicide lesson and kind of the never give up lesson, which I'd love to get your thoughts on after I just share a couple of mine. Is suicide is a pretty prominent issue in the veteran community and in life. I mean, let's be honest, the Western society, suicide is an enormously contributing cause of death that if you think about it from a biological standpoint, like doesn't really fucking make sense. Self-preservation is kind of the vein or the backbone, the foundation, the benchmark principle of a species, right? Is to self-preserve and to procreate. So for that thought process to enter human beings as frequently as it does is an interesting issue, I think, that that's worth looking at. But there's one thing that I love all the feedback and the messages that we get, whether it's email or on social media or on YouTube comments or what have you. That a lot of really neat feedback of saying, hey, this episode was so and so. I was at a shitty spot in my life, and this guy said something, and whatever. And to me, there's no greater compliment, in having a podcast than to get messages like that where a guest I had on made a difference or something that we said motivated them to change something in their life that ultimately was an enormously positive impact. But on the suicide front, I've known a number of guys, who have taken their own lives. I've had a number of guests on here who have talked about being in that mental space of almost doing it. I feel extraordinarily fortunate to have never been in that position to ever seriously considered that for myself. But I do think it's important to share one thing about it that, that I think, kind of rationalizes what the impact has. One thing that you hear a lot of times is that, people talk about suicide and that it's a selfish behavior. And for a long time, I didn't really understand, because I'd never really been through it, kind of what people meant by that. But, and I don't remember where I heard this. I apologize for, I'm sure, multiple people have come up with it, but one of the neatest ways to kind of couch the element of suicide in terms of pain is that, most people are in a lot of pain when they do it, all sorts of different types of pain. But, the reference is that suicide doesn't end the pain. what it does is it transfers it from you to the people that you care about, and so in that reference, for anybody out there listening, I think, if there's one fucking thing that you think about is think about the people that are going to hurt, that you're going to hurt, and who you're going to transfer that pain to in doing something like that. And again, it's powerful to hear you talk about seeing a picture of your wife and kids, and that kind of clicking, I think, of saying, wait a minute, like, I got this crew that's fucking depending on me, and this is, the shitty way out that's just going to fuck them over. And to me, that's a powerful lesson and a powerful moment. I appreciate you sharing it. The second point is just to never give up, is that, the adversity that created the mentality that ultimately led to you being able to be so successful with such a hard injury, physically, mentally, emotionally, family-wise, whatever. I think, I don't think, and just like you said, it was instrumental, I would say, in you being able to overcome, that hard of an injury and be able to not just overcome it, but actually become more successful in spite of it. And I'd love to get your thoughts on both of those two things.
So yeah, on the suicide front, suicide is, I have watched it because I've lost several friends. As a matter of fact, a mentor of mine took his life in 2016, a guy that I had known my whole career, family guy, and it destroyed that family. He had 3 kids, and it destroyed his wife, which they already were having a lot of problems before that occurred, and it destroyed 2 of his 3 kids, and one, the youngest, has done much better, and I'm working and trying to help him. But the other 2, are gone. They'll never
checked
recover.
out.
So it reminds me of literally a suicide bomber. Like, when you make that decision to take your life, it is like setting off a bomb, and you are sending that frag and pain, like you said, out to everybody around you. So, and what I want to tell people is that, it's never too late. I am living proof that you can come back from bad shit. And I destroyed my professional reputation and managed to come back. It ain't going to be easy. It is going to be painful. You may not, the outcome may not be what you think it's going to be. But no matter what, it's never too late, man. And there are people out there that care about you. That's the reality. Sometimes it's not the people that you want to care about you, because that's, sometimes the reason why people decide to take their lives. But man, I'm so grateful to still be alive, both from my injury, both from those dark times that I went through. And, yeah, you just every day, you have an opportunity to do something with your life. And I know when you're going through depression and hard moments, that's hard to see, man. You are in the storm, in the darkness. And that's where I just, try and find somebody to help you. Reach out. Don't, and it's the exact opposite of what people do. People turn in, they isolate, they avoid. So I just try and encourage you out there, if you're thinking about that, don't do it. The other component I want to hit on, and this specifically within the veteran community, because I've gotten really passionate about this. I used to believe that if our veterans could find a new purpose after the military, like that would fix their, the guys who were depressed and the guys who were ultimately committing suicide. But we are really starting to see a scourge with traumatic brain injuries related to blast injuries, which is relating to something called CTE, which is the same problem you're seeing in football players. Yeah. So a lot of our guys now that are taking their lives, the ones that have been autopsied, they have severe CTE. And it has a lot to do with the way we train, heavy weapons training, breacher training, and then, of course, a lot of the explosives that we use overseas. So if you are struggling, mentally, it may not be you guys. I mean, it may be, a traumatic brain injury. And so another reason to get help.
That you don't know that you have, because a lot of guys don't.
Yep.
So at a minimum, at least make sure that, that your wiring isn't fucking crossed, I mean, to me, like you owe your family at least that fucking much, But.
And doctors don't understand it. That's been one of the big problems. Doctors don't understand it, but they're getting smarter. And there are some doctors who may not buy into it yet. So if you're a spouse and, you've got a military veteran who their behavior is starting to drastically change, and, they've been in combat, or, maybe they haven't, they could have, a TBI, and, it could be CTE that's really causing pretty big damage.
Yeah.
Let's see. The other question was,
just to shed some light on the, and you already have, I mean, the podcast kind of exudes that, but just the never give up, you can always come back. I mean, you kind of already talked about it.
It's never too late. Plant that in your mind. I mean, I talk about, this idea of getting off the X, and, it's a principle that we learn in special operations. I mean, I would think that maybe some of the basic infantry units learn it also. But the idea is this, that the X is the point of incident, attack, and in life, it's adversity. And it's real easy for people to get stuck on the X. In a gunfight, it's easy to get stuck on the X. If you don't attack back or figure out how to get off the X quickly, the longer you sit on it, the more chances are you're going to get stuck, pinned down, die. And it's no different in life. I mean, as I started working with more wounded warriors and people that had been through hard moments, I was like, holy shit, man, everybody gets stuck on the X. So, but the founding principle is the faster you get off the X, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or even physically, the greater your chances of moving forward. Like, movement is life. Inertia is a deal. So, I teach things on how to do that. We developed a process, and it's not perfect. I mean, it takes action. It takes, it's not a magic wand.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's never too late. And it's never too late to start driving forward. And it is hard. I mean, being human's hard. Yeah. There are fucking hard moments. 2020, we've been hitting the face with the bat on a regular basis.
We've been hitting the face with a big veiny cock. At least I have. I don't know about you.
I'm having nightmares about that. My sea voyage.
Fucking Captain Stubing. If you could share a little bit about what you're up to now and where people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, man, it's been an interesting journey. I ran a nonprofit for quite a few years, and ended up phasing that down for a number of reasons. One was because we weren't focused on brain injuries and PTSD, and a good friend of mine was supposed to go through one of our programs and killed himself 2 weeks before the program started. Wow. So I was like, dude, you need to be focusing on that. So that was one thing now. So I am an ambassador for the Gary Sinise Foundation. I'm on the Veterans Council for the Concussion Legacy Foundation, focused on CTE and TBI, and I'm working with Project Headstrong, which is a great group. If you're a veteran out there struggling, go to getheadstrong.org. They will have you see a mental health professional within 24 to 48 hours, off the record. And you got combat guys and gals helping with the intake, so that you're not having somebody that has no fucking clue, or can't relate to you. So I'm doing that. And then I really have just started to focus the most on trying to help people become the best version of themselves, to just how do you build I call it the overcome mindset. How do you deal with that adversity? How do you become a better leader? And whether it's a better leader, at the end of the day, really it comes down to being a better leader yourself. Yeah. And if you can become a better leader yourself, it translates to all aspects of your life, and it leads you to build a better overcome mindset. So all of that has just been growing. I wrote Overcome last year, which really, in all intents and purposes, the Trident is kind of the story, where Overcome is kind of the how-to. And then in 2021, I'm getting ready to launch a new program called Point Man for Life. And I don't know, I just kind of had this epiphany that a lot of the things that I teach on are like the trademarks of a really good point man. Like, I mean, when we were out there, like the really good point man, you were like, dude, no, I don't want somebody else. I want that guy. Yeah. Like, he's my point man. Like, and I teach there's 4 critical principles to be a point man for life, or what makes a really good point man on the battlefield. And I feel like they're the exact same things on how you should live your life. And number 1 is a relentless belief in the mission. Like, those guys, like, no matter what goes wrong, they know what the mission is, and dude, they're locked on it. And so many people in this life, they don't know their mission. They haven't defined it. If you leave the military, so many guys don't know what their new mission is. So you do have to figure it out. And then, you got to believe in it. Number 2 is a clearly defined destination, and that set course. So if you look at a destination as long-term goals, that set course is the short-term waypoints. But you got to define that stuff. And by defining it, now you get your compass out and you're like, dude, I'm off course. 2020 has knocked me off course. Well, get your compass out, bro. It's not too late to get back on course. Number 3 is recognizing the risks and having situational awareness to see the indicators of, hey, shit's about to go south. So many people in this life, they don't do any of the risk analysis. They don't look at the risk. They don't take care of themselves, and they never see the indicators. And then, the next thing they know, we all have friends that are like, holy shit, I never saw that coming,
Yeah.
And we're like,
how
bro,
did I not see
yeah,
that?
bro, like we've seen the signs for this for months,
Yeah.
And then the last one is the ability to get off that X as quickly as possible. So building a mindset of, when shit goes south, I'm not going to lay here and feel sorry for myself. It's a mindset of immediate action drills, drive forward. So I'm launching that in 2021. It's coming out with a planner. It's coming out with an online course to help people, because I truly believe if you can live by those 4 principles, life will be a lot easier. I mean, it gives you a light in the darkness.
Yeah. It's great shit, positive stuff. And again, you've lived it, so I think, you're a huge inspiration to a lot of folks, myself included. And I appreciate your friendship and you coming on the show, man. It's a great and humbling and amazing story. So, thank you for coming. Anything that you want to add before we wrap this shit up?
No, man, likewise, brother. I appreciate you being out there, doing it, setting the example. There are a lot of people that love watching what you're doing. I always tell people you're the dog whisperer. So.
Whisper screamer, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Well, thank you much. Again, I appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show, and thanks for sharing your story, my man.
Yeah, man. If you guys want to find me, jasonredman.com is my website. You can learn more about me. If you're looking for these programs, they're not quite on there yet. We're kind of rebuilding and redoing the websites. Within the next month, they'll be ready, probably mid-December, end of December, ready to go.
Are all your social handles on there as well?
Yeah, okay. Bottom of the website's all my social handles. I'm most active on Instagram. I did create a Parler account, so,
For the dick pics?
Yeah, sure can't fuck... Dude, I can't figure that thing out yet, though.
No, I know.
So, but so I'm on all the socials and trying, and I try and put out nothing but positive content on how to drive forward and lead yourself, and but at the end of the day, people can talk to their blue in the face. At the end of the day, it comes back to you.
Yeah.
You have to get off that X. You have to drive forward. You got to lead yourself.
You can lead a horse to water, right?
Yep.
And then hold his head under it. I'd like to take a quick second to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Origin Labs and Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is a great product. He's got a ton of products actually within the Jocko Fuel line. The guests and I enjoy them on the show. And outside, I take a lot of the supplements. I've got some of the Origin Lab jeans, boots, gis, and it's just all around American industry. They do a fantastic job really re-revolutionizing American industry from start to finish. It's all American made, all American sourced. Everything start to finish is made right there in-house, and they really do a phenomenal job creating the products and fulfilling the whole ball of wax. They've been a huge supporter of the Mic Drop podcast for a while now, and I really can't thank Jocko Fuel and Origin Labs enough for the job that they do for us. And so thank you to you guys. I'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Resilience Premium CBD. Resilience is excited to offer all Mic Drop listeners a 20% off discount on all products for 2 weeks from when this podcast is live using the discount code MICDROP at checkout. That's 2 words, MICDROP at checkout. I'd also like to say that Resilience is a great company that works in conjunction with Trico CBD, and all military veterans and first responders receive 35% off. Yes, that's 35% off for all military veterans and first responders, and that's through the Military and First Responders Program. You just have to sign up at resilientcbd.com/military first responders discount. In terms of about Resilience, generally speaking, it's a premium CBD that I use. Again, it works in conjunction with the Tricos brand for the everyday athlete. That's www.resilientcbd.com. And Resilience was really born with the founders who are military veterans as well, personally experienced the effects and impact that CBD had on their own mental and physical obstacles. Their focus was sharper, mental stress was calmed, fitness stamina increased, and their bodies felt less pain, inflammation after super intense workouts. A lot of times, most people and people are able to either wean off entirely or significantly reduce pain management therapy. This is a shared vision among the founders that this incredible supplement had not only changed their lives, but had the power to provide unbelievable benefits to family, friends, athletes, fellow veterans, and ultimately the entire fitness community. So big shout out to Resilience for their product as well as the Trico stuff. We sure appreciate their support. As always, I want to thank, again, Jay for spending the time to come talk with us and share his amazing story. I want to thank our sponsors and, of course, you guys. I'm looking right at you motherfuckers on the camera. And that's one of the comments I get. Your face is always hidden. And okay, I'm staring right at you. All right, so screenshot it if need be. But I want to thank you guys for coming and tuning in every show. Without the support from you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this and bring stories like Jay's to the forefront. So I really can't thank you guys enough for tuning in show after show and continuing to spread the word and make the show grow. So thank you from the bottom of my heart from all you guys. And just in true fashion, feel free to choke yourself if you disagree. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.